Chapter 1525. Pung. At this moment, the entire mountain shook. Kacha, kacha, kacha. A crack suddenly appeared on the top of the mountain and spread all the way down. In an instant, it spread to the middle of the mountain and was still spreading downwards. Not long after, the crack ran through the entire mountain. Rumble. As a result, the entire mountain seemed to have been split into two halves and slowly separated. Amidst the wailing of the air and the trembling of the earth, it fell towards the ground. Dong! Amidst the deafening roar, the mountain heavily smashed into the ground, stirring up countless gravel and sand that wreaked havoc in this part of the world. Stepping on the somersault cloud, the great sage, Heaven's Equal, looked down at the collapsed mountain and scratched his head like a child who had caused trouble. Oh no, I was careless and forgot to restrain my strength. Although he said so, the great sage, Heaven's Equal, really treated the exaggerated shaking scene in front of him as a child who had accidentally broken a piece of furniture. He looked as though he had caused trouble. Obviously, for the great sage, Heaven's Equal, who was ranked in the top 3 and had once turned the entire heaven realm upside down, this level of destruction was really just this level. It was just the strength of one smash. With just one smash, the Rui Jingu Bang of the great sage, Heaven's Equal, who was a half-star spirit, easily smashed the entire mountain until it cracked and collapsed. That power was simply ridiculously strong. However, Noah was also not easy to deal with. Pung! Under the collapsed mountain, an explosion suddenly sounded and shook the entire space. A figure shot up into the sky from the collapsed mountain, causing the heavy mountain to explode. Like a bolt of lightning, he shot into the sky. Then, like a shooting star, he turned and charged towards the great sage, Heaven's Equal. That speed was simply like a mirage flashing continuously in the space, bringing along a series of lights and shadows. In the blink of an eye, he violently swept in front of the great sage, Heaven's Equal. Seeing this, the great sage, Heaven's Equal, subconsciously wanted to lift the steel staff in his hand. However, his heart suddenly tightened for no reason. He abruptly stepped on the somersault cloud beneath his feet and hurriedly retreated. Just as great sage equaling Heaven's figure retreated rapidly, Noah, who was dashing over at lightning speed, directly appeared where great sage equaling Heaven was a second ago. His fist, which was wrapped in crimson airwaves, slammed heavily into the air. Dong! As the punch landed, the powerful force shook and created a loud bang, causing ripples to appear in the space. The great sage, Heaven's Equal, stared at Noah, who was covered in a crimson dragon shadow and exuding a terrifying aura. He said this with deep meaning. Compared to before, you seem to be a little different, don't you? Upon hearing this, Noah said plainly. There's nothing different. It's just that I've shown my true abilities. Surging divine power suddenly spread out from Noah's body, stirring up the entire atmosphere. Feeling that astonishing divine power, the great sage, Heaven's Equal's expression finally slowly became serious. It was only at this moment that the great sage, Heaven's Equal, felt threatened from Noah's body. However, that was to be expected. It was just like what Noah had said. He had already shown his true abilities. In the depths of Noah's heart, the images representing the Dragon Emperor and Phoenix incarnations were shining brightly. Using the dragon's sovereignty of the sun to strengthen the mind, Noah finally used the power of 2 incarnations at the same time. Immediately after, Noah's body suddenly trembled and suddenly disappeared. The great sage, Heaven's Equal's pupils constricted. His body turned into a light shadow under the somersault cloud and retreated like lightning. However, in the next moment, the great sage, Heaven's Equal's body suddenly stopped in its tracks. Immediately, without hesitation, he raised the Jingu Bang in his hand and swung it heavily behind his back. Almost at the same time, a fist covered in a crimson dragon shadow suddenly appeared in the air and violently blasted out, colliding with the steel rod that was swinging towards him. Clang! The fist and the steel rod collided with each other, causing the sound of steel colliding with steel. Suddenly, a heavy voice rang out. As the voice rang out, the great sage, Heaven's Equal, could clearly feel that the power of the fist that landed on his Jingu Bang was getting stronger and stronger. Bang! The frightening power sent the great sage, heaven's equal, flying like a cannonball. He flew backward at an extremely fast speed. Good boy. The great sage, heaven's equal's eyes finally burned with a strong burning desire to fight. To be able to force old Sun back with one punch, it seems like I've underestimated you. In that case, try this move. The great sage, heaven's equal, suddenly formed a hand seal and threw the Rui Jingu Bang in his hand into the air. Jingu Bang. Grow bigger. Grow bigger. Grow bigger. Grow bigger. Grow bigger. The Rui Jingu Bang, which was thrown into the air, suddenly stopped moving. Then, its entire body suddenly expanded. Wang 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 wang. The godly sea-steadying needle, which weighed 13,500 kilograms, continued to expand. Its entire body was vibrating. In the blink of an eye, its entire body had expanded to the size of a mountain. Noah watched the Rui Jingu Bang grow bigger and bigger with his own eyes. In the end, it even pierced through the sky and filled his vision. His pitch-black eyes suddenly rippled. Ha 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 ha. The great sage, heaven's equal, laughed out loud. Try this move. Little Noah. The great sage, heaven's equal's hand seal changed. The huge godly sea-steadying needle that pierced through the clouds stopped vibrating abruptly. Whoo! In the next moment, a gust of wind blew. It was caused by the Rui Jingu Bang, which was even bigger than a mountain, falling from the sky like a meteorite. The air between the heavens and the earth seemed to be stirred up by the huge pillar at this moment. A violent storm was set off, and in the midst of a buzzing sound, it trembled continuously. The gigantic pillar that held up the sky came crashing down. Its bottom was aimed at Noah's location, compressing and crushing the atmosphere along the way. It was as if the entire sky was falling down, bringing about a stretch of distorted space. The momentum was terrifying. Even Noah couldn't help but feel his scalp go numb at this scene. The Rui Jingu Bang was originally a gifted weapon of the Godhead grade. At this moment, when it came crashing down in such a manner, it was no less than the collapse of the heavens and earth. If that blow landed directly on the ground, the sea of lava that appeared due to the collision between Noah and the three-headed dragon last month might appear again. Even Noah, who had used 2 avatars at the same time and used all his strength, did not dare to be careless with this level of violence. If he didn't treat it seriously, he might be hit hard in this world again. Looking at the scene that seemed like the sky was falling, Noah's eyes flashed with a fierce light. Fight! Suddenly, in Noah's heart, the phoenix that was shining brightly suddenly dimmed, and was replaced by the giant that was shining brightly. As a result, a huge phantom rose from Noah's body and merged with the crimson dragon's shadow on his body. After merging giant and dragon emperor, the crimson dragon's shadow that covered the sky directly rose from Noah's body. It was like a giant god, clenching its arms tightly. Boost, supercharge, boost, supercharge, boost, supercharge, boost, supercharge, boost, supercharge, boost, supercharge. A burst of red light rose from the huge hand that covered the sky. Immediately, with the most powerful impact, it fiercely punched the bottom of the huge pillar that was descending from the sky. Rumble. The huge arm that covered the sky collided with the huge pillar that seemed like the sky was collapsing, exploding with a power that could destroy heaven and earth. A terrifying shockwave erupted in all directions at this moment. Wherever it passed, even the space of nothingness would distort. A wave of astonishing energy surged out and spread in all directions. The thick layer of dark clouds in the sky was directly scattered. The earth seemed to be crushed by an invisible power, and it was forced to cave in. The shockwave that shook heaven and earth was like the explosion of a star. It was as if this part of the world had been attacked by a violent storm, and was ruthlessly ravaged. Boom! At a certain moment, another thunderous sound rang out. Then, 2 figures flew out from the center of the earth-shattering shockwave. Chapter 1526. Whoosh! An extremely ear-piercing sound of air friction resounded throughout the entire world. In the shockwave that was like the explosion of a star, the two figures rubbed against the air and shot out with an extremely ear-piercing sound, heavily smashing into two mountain peaks. Bang! Amidst the neat muffled explosions, the two figures that were sent flying smashed into the mountain wall and sank into the mountain. They were directly buried by the huge rocks that fell down. Oh! Noah was lying in the mountain rock. Just as he moved, his whole body made cracking sounds as though it was fractured. Noah could not help but let out a muffled groan from his throat. He felt as though his bones were falling apart and he was almost unable to move. Fortunately, the symptoms were only temporary. Not long after, Noah felt that his strength had recovered a little. He propped himself up and released the divine power in his body. Bang! The surging divine power directly turned into an impact and exploded the mountain rock around Noah. The rock fragments flew everywhere and the mountain peak trembled. Noah directly turned into a stream of light and flew out of the mountain wall. He rushed out of the mountain peak and suspended in mid-air, looking ahead. Almost at the same time, another stream of light also exploded the mountain wall and shot out, arriving in front of Noah. Oh, it really hurts. Monkey King seemed to be in the same situation as Noah. In the collision just now, he felt as though his entire body was falling apart. As he moved his shoulders, he grimaced in pain. How long has it been since I was beaten so badly? Don't you have any tender feelings for the fairer sex? If you really want me to have tender feelings for the fairer sex, why don't you change your habit of calling yourself old son? Noah could not help but smile bitterly. Moreover, I am not so naive as to show mercy when dealing with a half-star elf. That would be akin to courting death. You can't say that, Monkey King retorted. If you show mercy, I, old son, will naturally show mercy as well. I won't let you suffer any losses. Is that so? Noah looked at the great sage, Heaven's Equal, suspiciously. Are you that kind? In the past, I've indeed done some terrible things. I don't dare to call myself a good person, but the great sage, Heaven's Equal, Sun Wukong, isn't a villain either. The great sage, Heaven's Equal, said with a nonchalant attitude. So, don't worry, little Noah, I won't bully you. We don't know who's bullying who yet. Also, don't call me little Noah. Noah first corrected her, then straightened his back. So, are we still fighting? I won't fight anymore. I didn't plan to fight in the lower realm this time. I just wanted to play with you. If you fight like this, even those guys above can't say anything, right? Great Sage Equaling Heaven glanced at Noah. Besides, if you don't show your true strength, how are you going to fight? Not going to show your true strength? Noah raised his eyebrows. I've already used all my strength. Isn't this considered true strength? That's just your true strength. Great Sage Equaling Heaven stared at Noah. But now, you've obtained the 14 sons sovereignty bestowed by the White Knight King. If you use all their powers, the situation will definitely be different, right? How can it be that easy? Noah sighed. In addition to being able to summon astral beasts, Sun sovereignty can also strengthen the abilities corresponding to their respective inheritances. Now, I don't even know what characteristics those Sun sovereigns have. How can I strengthen them? For example, the dragon's Sun sovereignty. The function of this Sun sovereignty was to greatly improve the spirit lattice. However, Noah did not have such a thing as a spirit lattice, so how could he improve it? Therefore, Noah took a different approach and used the dragon's Sun sovereignty to strengthen his mind and strength. Among the 14 Sun sovereigns that White Yiksha had transferred to Noah, there were also many that were completely useless to Noah. For this reason, Noah had to go through a period of research and understand the characteristics and powers of those Sun sovereigns before he could use them to strengthen himself directly or indirectly. Now, Noah definitely could not use those Sun sovereigns, nor did he dare to use them. That's true. The great sage, Heaven's Equal, nodded in agreement. Then, he fell silent and muttered to himself. A human who can compete with me without borrowing the power of the sun's sovereignty has a much higher chance of winning against a human in the final trial. It's simply a miracle that a human can be so strong. I see. Is that why the White Knight King has placed his hopes on you? Seeing that great sage equaling heaven had fallen into deep thought, Noah frowned. Just as he was about to speak, great sage equaling heaven suddenly spoke. All right, since that's the case, I'll try to believe you. Let's end today's matter here. WH. What? Noah was stunned. What was the meaning of this? Little Noah, I'll leave the matter of Azidakaha to you, great sage equaling heaven said to the stunned Noah. I'm preparing to return to the heavenly realm now. Let's meet again. Wait a minute. Noah stopped great sage equaling heaven from acting as he pleased and asked with a frown. What do you mean? Aren't you preparing to bring the sun's sovereignty back? I didn't receive any orders to bring the sun's sovereignty back, great sage equaling heaven answered in a straightforward manner. The Buddhists only sent me here to try and bring back the White Knight King. It would be best if I could convince her. If not, I'll get old Sun to report back. After all, if I were to rely on myself to kidnap the White Knight King, it would be harder than charging into the heavenly realm. What? Noah looked at great sage equaling heaven. Don't you want to create a new box court? Not everyone wishes to move to a new box court. Great sage equaling heaven turned his head and looked into the distance. There was a hint of nostalgia in his clear eyes. This box court records the most glorious and unbearable past of my brothers and sisters. I don't wish for it to be destroyed just like that. Noah fell silent. Under such circumstances, the great sage, heaven's equal, continued to speak. I don't care what the higher-ups decide. However, I can't bear to see so many lives being lost because of a decision. If that happens, I won't be able to eat well or sleep well. Although great sage equaling heaven said this in an extremely casual tone, it was precisely because of this that it proved that great sage equaling heaven felt this way from the bottom of his heart. Then, great sage equaling heaven changed the topic. However, just because I think this way doesn't mean that the rest of the higher-ups think this way. Oh. Noah nodded, not surprised. In other words, in the end, will those gods with more than 3 digits come to find trouble with me? Definitely, great sage equaling heaven said with absolute certainty. Those guys all think that there is hope only in the new box court. The current box court can no longer stay there because of Azidakaha. Compared to Azidakaha, anyone would think that a human with a limited lifespan is much easier to deal with. Bullying the weak and fearing the strong? Noah said sarcastically. The so-called gods are just so-so. Gods have hearts too. That's why they are angry, greedy, calculative, and paranoid. There's nothing strange about that, great sage equaling heaven said. In any case, that's all I have to say. I don't know when the higher-ups will find trouble with you, and I have no way of informing you. You can only do as you see fit. Great sage equaling heaven hesitated for a moment. Finally, he let out a faint sigh. And if you are able to pass through the trial of the gods of the heavenly realm and fight against Azidakaha, then try to find my sworn brothers and sisters. They might be able to help you. Hearing this, Noah spoke almost instinctively. Don't you want to meet your brothers and sisters yourself? Noah's words made the great sage equaling heaven, who looked like a 13 or 14-year-old girl, ripple in his gem-like eyes. He tightened his grip on the Jingu Bang. An indescribable heavy atmosphere filled the entire space as great sage equaling heaven fell silent. After an unknown amount of time, great sage equaling heaven took a deep breath and raised his head. I can't do that. Great sage equaling heaven revealed a lonely expression. Once we meet, I'm afraid that I won't be able to bear to leave. After saying this, great sage equaling heaven turned around. As if he didn't want Noah to see his current expression, he rode the somersault cloud and transformed into a streak of light that shot towards the horizon. Looking in the direction that great sage equaling heaven left in, Noah remained silent for a long time. The great sage equaling heaven in this world was really gentle. Chapter 1527. Actually, the existence of the Sky Army was not a secret. At least, for the rulers of the social strata, the existence of the Sky Army, which aimed to suppress the oldest demon king, was not a secret. Therefore, at the beginning, everyone was also looking forward to the support of the Sky Army. But it was just like what Noah had said. If the Sky Army was really ready to move out, these people should have already arrived in a month's time. Since there was no trace of the Sky Army until now, there was not even a trace of news. Needless to say, there must be a problem. Of course, the rulers of the social strata also did not expect that the reason why the Sky Army did not move out was that they were preparing to abandon the box court and start to build a new one, leaving the people in the old box court to fend for themselves. The rulers of the social strata were just like Bayasha. They all thought that the Sky Army did not move out, so there should be a mistake in the 3-digit levels and above. After all, just like what the great sage equaling heaven said, among the many god groups, not everyone wanted to abandon the box court from the bottom of their hearts. And of course, in the Sky Army, not all the god groups were good people. Compared to Noah, these rulers of the social strata understood the inside story of the Sky Army more, and also understood the ideas of those god groups. Basically, except for the 12 heavenly guardians who were directly under Sakra, even if the rest of the god groups came to the lower realm to suppress the demon king, they would definitely use purification as a reason to completely turn the middle and lower realm of the box court into a piece of scorched earth. Therefore, if because of this matter, the 3-digit levels of the god groups had a dispute over the dispatch of the Sky Army members, then it was not impossible that it had been delayed until now. Moreover, it was also possible that there was a problem with the Sky Army. The Sky Army referred to the Gate of Heaven. It was the door that connected the 3-digit levels and the lower realms, allowing the gods to descend to the lower realms. If the 3-digit levels of the gods casually descended to the lower realms, just this act alone could cause a world-shaking disaster. The Gate of Heaven, the Sky Army, was a door that was created to reduce the impact of the descent. Through the Sky Army, the 3-digit levels of the gods and star spirits could appear in the lower realms. If one descended to the lower realm without going through daily heaven, then no matter how strong one's will was, they could become the source of disaster. It was precisely because of this that existences above 3 digits could not easily interfere with the lower realm. In light of this, if there was a problem with Li Gao Tian, it would not be strange for the Sky Army to not be able to move out. Due to various considerations, the leaders of the social class did not think that the higher-ups were ready to abandon Box Ting. But like Noah, they felt that the Sky Army would not be mobilized. If he wanted to defeat Az Dakaha, he would have to rely on himself. Under such circumstances, the Stratum overlords began their operations like a raging fire. For example, the hunting of Az Dakaha's split body. Therefore, when Noah left the ancient castle to search for White Yiksha, the members of No Name also participated in the hunt. Aside from Ren, who did not have any combat power, Black Rabbit, Judo Asuka, Hiroi Hiroyuki, Letitia, and Pest had all participated in the operation. And the community that acted together with the members of No Name was none other than Will-O-Wisp. At this time, everyone was riding on a few pterosaur fire dragons lent by Salamandra, heading towards the location of the hunting target. Ai Xia did not ride on the fire dragons, but rode on Jack's back, secretly looking in the direction of No Name's group, wanting to say something but hesitating. The one who noticed Ai Xia's strangeness was Hiroi Hiroyuki, who had sharp senses. Immediately, Hiroi Hiroyuki tilted his head and asked without hesitation, "What's wrong?" With that one sentence, everyone in No Name turned to look at Ai Xia. Being stared at by so many people at once, Ai Xia's neck could not help but shrink. However, Ai Xia did not shrink back, but after hesitating for a long time, she said somewhat bashfully, That sir from your community, did he not come with you?" "That sir?" Judo Asuka asked doubtfully. "Which sir?" On the contrary, Black Rabbit showed a sharp intuition that she did not usually have. "The sir that Miss Ai Xia is talking about, could it be Noah-san?" Yes. Ai Xia nodded repeatedly, but when she noticed that her excessive behavior had attracted everyone's strange gazes, Her pretty face immediately stiffened, and she awkwardly smiled. Why didn't Noah-san come with us? The one who answered this question was not Black Rabbit, but Letitia. Master has other things to do. Letitia kept looking forward, and did not even turn her head to look at Ai Xia, and answered very casually. Moreover, it's just a group of clones, it's not to the point where Master needs to personally act. Hearing this, everyone could not help but look at each other, and secretly smiled bitterly in their hearts. To Letitia, perhaps Aziz-Dakaha's clones were really nothing much, right? Although the first generation of Aziz-Dakaha's doppelgangers were all at the level of deities, Letitia, who had retrieved her divinity and completed the dragon's shadow, was able to unleash the full power of the Demon King when she was born. Letitia's level was in the 4 digits of the box court. Furthermore, Letitia possessed the sovereignty of the Ophiuchus constellation's sun, so it was not difficult for her to deal with a group of god-level clones. However, this was not the case for the rest of the people. Other than Letitia, the ones with the strongest battle power were likely Pest and Jack. Among them, Pest was at the level of God. Thus, to the rest of the people, a god-level opponent was still very pressuring. After getting rid of the slight unhappiness in her heart, Pest glanced at Ai Xia and asked in a somewhat disinterested manner. Speaking of which, you seem to be, before she could finish her words, Letitia's sharp gaze landed on Pest. This caused Pest's entire body to tremble. She hurriedly changed what she was going to say. You seem to be very respectful toward Master. Isn't that only natural? Ai Xia shouted without hesitation. Lord Noah is so handsome. So powerful. Is he not worthy of respect? The entire place suddenly turned silent. In the next instant, all the members of No Name, including Letitia, cast strange gazes toward Ai Xia. Only then did Ai Xia realize what she had said, and her expression instantly froze. Oh, Jiufei Bird's mocking voice sounded. Is Noah very handsome? So that's how it is, even Hiroi Hiroyuki revealed a mischievous expression. Is Noah very handsome? Yes, Black Rabbit snickered. Is Mr. Noah very handsome? Is that so? However, Pest appeared to have lost interest in the matter. Isn't that guy very handsome? Only Letitia was looking at Ai Xia with a somewhat approving gaze. To be able to understand Master's handsomeness, as expected of a community member of the strongest demon in the Northern District. You all are very annoying. Ai Xia shouted with a red face. I just feel that Lord Noah is very handsome. Is that not okay? Seeing Ai Xia shouting there as if she had given up on herself, the members of No Name couldn't help but laugh out loud. Regardless of whether he is handsome or not, we do care about Mr. Noah very much, Jack interjected with a witty laugh at this moment. After all, that one in our family is quite curious about Mr. Noah. After saying that, Jack said with a deep meaning. Perhaps they have already met. Who knows? Noah, who didn't know what the girls of No Name were doing, returned to White Yiksha after parting with Great Sage equaling heaven. After chatting with White Yiksha for a while, he left and directly returned to the castle. Walking on the road to the throne hall, Noah muttered to himself as he thought about the matters regarding the group of gods. About the gods, should I mention it to Sarah and Shadora? Noah, who was thinking about this, didn't notice. In an alley beside the street, a figure quietly peeked out and curiously looked in the direction of Noah. Chapter 1528. Noah, who was on his way to the throne hall, suddenly stopped in his tracks. Frowning slightly, Noah turned around suspiciously and looked at an alley beside the street. However, there was nothing there. However, Noah's frown deepened, and he muttered to himself uncertainly. Just now, someone seemed to be looking at me. In fact, there were many people looking at Noah. The reason was simple. The news of Noah killing the leader of the Two Wings, with one punch when he first came to this camp had already spread to all the large communities. Moreover, in order to boost morale, Sarah and Shadora also announced that the human hero, No Name, who once fought against the oldest demon king, Az Dakaha, and severely injured the three-headed demonic dragon, exposing the weakness of his heart, was still alive. Therefore, now, everyone clearly knew what kind of person this seemingly inconspicuous human in front of them was. Therefore, once he entered the castle, Noah was being scrutinized by the people around him. However, just now, Noah's superb sensing ability allowed him to feel a gaze that was different from the others staring at him. Therefore, Noah looked around and carefully observed the direction of the alley. After he did not find anything wrong, his frown slowly loosened. Forget it. Although he did not know who was secretly observing him, Noah's outstanding sensing ability told him that the other party's gaze did not carry any malice, killing intent, or hostility. Since that was the case, if other people wanted to observe him, then let them observe him. After all, it was not the first time Noah attracted so much attention. With this thought, Noah turned around and walked forward again. However, in the next moment, Noah's footsteps suddenly stopped, and he abruptly took a small step to the side. Whoosh! At this moment, an unidentified flying object flew past where Noah was just standing. If Noah did not dodge, then he would have been attacked by the unidentified flying object. Now, Noah's dodge caused the unidentified flying object to miss and continue to fly forward without slowing down. Almost at this moment, Noah suddenly stretched out his hand, and with a paw sound, he fiercely caught the unidentified flying object. Only then did Noah clearly see the unidentified flying object's body. It was a blunt cross weapon. Most people called it a hammer, or an iron hammer. In other words, just now, someone used this blunt cross weapon to attack Noah. Immediately, Noah suddenly turned around and looked in the direction of the alley. This time, Noah saw it. Undoubtedly, there was nothing in the alley before. A black shadow seemed to poke its head towards Noah's direction. When it realized that Noah was looking, it immediately, as if it was shocked, and immediately retreated. Unfortunately, this time, Noah clearly found the traces of the old man. Without any hesitation, Noah flashed and rushed to the front of the alley. Noah could not help but be surprised. Because, in the alley, there was nothing. It was a dead alley. Less than 20 meters away from the mouth of the alley, there was a wall. If there was someone here just now, then it was impossible to escape. Could it have flown up? Noah raised his head and looked at the sky. That place was naturally empty as well. That's not right. Noah reacted. If someone just flew out from here, then I would have definitely seen it. In other words, the means of disappearance was not by flying. Not by flying? Is it by burrowing or invisibility? Noah frowned again. However, in the box court, there were all kinds of gifts. It was not rare to have gifts such as burrowing or invisibility. The problem was, if the other party was invisible, then it would definitely not be able to hide from Noah, who had the sensing ability. Since Noah did not find the other party, it could only be that the other party used some kind of means to escape. It was just that he did not know what means it was. After observing the inside of the alley again, Noah could not find anything and could only helplessly give up and turn around again. Whoosh! At this time, there was another whistling sound of the wind. Noah suddenly turned around and stretched out his hand behind him. As a result, there was a paw sound and a new blunt cross weapon fell into Noah's hand. The word, well, suddenly appeared on Noah's forehead. His eyelids twitched as he looked at the empty alley in front of him and took a deep breath. Don't hide. Come out immediately. The voice echoed clearly in the alley, turning into an echo that did not disperse for a long time. Noah narrowed his eyes and stared at the two blunt cross weapons in his hand. The corner of his mouth slowly raised. If you don't come out, then I will find you myself. Since the other party used the blunt cross weapon to attack Noah twice in a row, the possibility of the other party having another blunt cross weapon was very high. Since that was the case, if he used item location, it would be easy to find the other party, right? With that thought in mind, Noah flipped his hand and took out a scroll. Then, he tossed it into the air. The magic scroll immediately burned and turned into ashes. Then, an image was reflected in Noah's mind. That was naturally the location of the attacker. However, this location made Noah somewhat surprised. He actually escaped to such a far place in such a short time. Somewhat surprised, Noah turned his hand again and took out another scroll. This scroll had a teleportation spell attached to it. Clang! The scroll burned, and Noah turned into a beam of dim light, disappearing from the spot. Noah's vision in front of him rotated, and then, he was teleported to another alley. Eh? A voice full of surprise rang out. Noah lifted his eyes and looked to the front. Immediately, he was stunned. He saw that in front of Noah, a person was looking at Noah with the same surprised expression as the voice. It was a young girl who didn't seem to be very old. The reason why he used seemed as a more ambiguous term was because it was really difficult for others to judge a girl's true age from her appearance. No. To be more precise, it should be said that the girl had all the physical characteristics that didn't match her age. It was a girl who seemed to be only 13 or 14 years old. She had a very sweet baby face and a bountiful fruit, with 2 blue ponytails tied into a very conspicuous ball shape. This girl had a seductive body curve that didn't match her young appearance at all. Undoubtedly, her height was only about 150 centimeters, but she had an unusually full upper body. She was wearing a gothic dress with black and pale embellishments, like a formal dress, which highlighted her full upper body and also directly exposed her white thighs to the air, which was very charming. She had both glamorous and lovely magic, and there was a sense of morality in the sense of sex that firmly captured the male's gaze. That image was exactly the same as the female demon in the legend who led people to commit crimes. However, this girl didn't seem to have such self-awareness. Her eyes were quite pure and the expression on her face was also the kind of naive expression without any scheming. Looking at such a girl, men probably couldn't help but secretly swallow a mouthful of saliva. Although Noah wasn't that unbearable, his eyes couldn't help but move down slightly. Looking at the girl's full upper body and childlike appearance, the corner of his mouth twitched again and again. He didn't expect that in this world, there was actually an existence of the same type as Hasti. It was indeed a box that had everything. At this moment, Noah only felt that he had really learned something. The girl seemed to be aware of Noah's gaze on her full upper body, but she didn't have any reaction to it. Instead, she tilted her head and looked at him blankly. Shortly after, the young girl spoke in a somewhat timid manner. "What's wrong with you?" Obviously, the girl didn't realize how attractive her figure and dress were, and she didn't realize what the man's gaze on her full upper body meant. That was beyond the level of no self-awareness, right? This made Noah's anger of being attacked twice disappear inexplicably. He raised the blunt cross weapon in his hand somewhat speechlessly. "It was you who just attacked me, right?" "Attack?" The girl blinked her eyes. That action was extremely cute. Noah felt that something in his heart was ignited. Chapter 1529. Please don't misunderstand. Noah's anger wasn't ignited by any evil thoughts, but rather, he was filled with depression. From the innocent expression on the girl's face, Noah could roughly guess what was going on. Most likely, the other party didn't even consider throwing a blunt object as an attack, right? So, what was this to the girl? To play? Feeling depressed, Noah raised the cross-blunt weapon in his hand and asked the girl directly. "Why did you throw this thing at me?" Looking at the cross weapon in Noah's hand, the girl seemed to have finally understood what was going on. She raised her eyes slightly, looked at Noah, and said, "I wanted to see how you would react." Huh? Noah couldn't help but be stunned. He was also a little confused. Just because of this? The girl nodded. Noah felt all the strength in his body leaving him, and he was completely speechless. He thought this girl was the same type of existence as Hestia, but he didn't expect that they were only similar in terms of appearance. At least, Hestia definitely wasn't like this girl, who was so natural that it made people speechless. As expected, there are a lot of weirdos in the box. Noah threw the blunt object in his hand back to the girl. "But I'm sorry, I'm not interested in being someone's observation target. Please go and see how others react. Seeing the blunt object being thrown back, the girl clumsily caught it with her hands and feet. At this moment, Noah turned around and walked towards the street outside. Seeing this, the girl was slightly startled and followed him without hesitation. On the wide street, many people were walking in and out of the doors of many buildings. It was quite lively. However, at a certain moment, many people on the street turned their eyes towards a certain direction. Their eyes flickered with amazement, and many men's eyes even turned as green as a wolf's. And where these people's gazes landed, Noah was walking there. Unfortunately, the surrounding people's gazes weren't directed at Noah, but at the girl behind Noah. Feeling the piercing gazes of the surrounding people, Noah had no choice but to stop in his tracks. He turned around and looked at the young lady who was following him. "Why are you following me?" Hearing this, the girl also stopped and stared at Noah with her big blinking eyes. After hesitating for a moment, she asked, "I'm very curious about you." "Is that so?" Noah once again felt weak from the girl's innocent tone. "It's an honor to be curious about a beautiful girl like you. If possible, I hope you can tell me the reason." "Because Jack told me." The girl stared at Noah without blinking as she said so. "You once defeated Maxwell." "Jack? Maxwell?" Noah was stunned. How did these two names end up together? The girl didn't seem to understand how many questions her words caused to Noah, just like how Noah should understand her meaning. She tilted her head and looked at him innocently. Noah's intuition and rationality told him that if this continues, he probably won't be able to solve his questions. Talking to this natural girl, if he didn't speak more directly, she definitely wouldn't understand, right? "Alright, it's my fault." Noah rubbed the space between his eyebrows and didn't beat around the bush. "First, please tell me, you know Jack, right?" "Yes." The girl nodded. "Jack is a member of my community." "You're a member of the community?" Noah's heart suddenly moved. At this moment, the first thing that came to Noah's mind was the incident where the young lady threw a blunt cross at him from the alley. After being discovered by him, she mysteriously appeared in another place far away. Combining this matter with the girl's words, Noah looked at the girl with some surprise. "Are you the leader of Will-O-Wisp?" "Yes." The girl nodded as if she didn't notice the surprise in Noah's heart. "My name is Vera, Vera Za-Ignatifates." Vera Za-Ignatifates. The leader of the six-digit community, Will-O-Wisp, born at the border between life and death, able to freely move between life and death, known as the strongest great demon in the north. So it was this girl? The leader of the community, whose mission was to adopt the souls of innocent children who died, was actually such a girl. So that's why Jack said that their leader was different from what Noah imagined. Noah was speechless. However, reality proved that this girl's words were probably correct. If it was a great demon who could freely manipulate the realm, then she could use teleportation. After being discovered by Noah, she would immediately disappear from the alley and appear far away. Moreover, after careful observation, Noah could also use his sensing ability to detect a very ordinary aura from the girl named Vera. It was definitely not an aura that an ordinary girl should have. That. Noah scratched his head and said somewhat tentatively, "Can I just call you Vera?" Vera nodded without any objections. "Then, Vera, I understand that you are the leader of Will-O-Wisp." Noah decided to first clarify another very important matter. "But, you are also related to Maxwell?" Maxwell. Once together with Gajiel, in order to understand Kayaz Dakaha's seal, they joined forces to besiege Noah. The demon king who could manipulate the realm of cold and warmth, possessing an immortal body. That guy could also use the power of the realm of manipulation to teleport. Now that Vera mentioned Maxwell, Noah could not help but think that the two of them had some sort of relationship. However, what surprised Noah was that Vera's eyes widened slightly, as if she had heard something extremely shocking, or as if she had thought of some disgusting past. She desperately shook her head with tears in her eyes. "No, no. I have nothing to do with that disgusting person. Disgusting? Noah was shocked by Vera's overly intense reaction. What? What's going on? Vera did not explain, but continued to step forward with tears in her eyes. She reached out a hand and tugged at Noah's clothes, saying helplessly, I hope you can help me. When a young girl with a youthful face and a full bust, possessing both sexiness and cuteness, whose charm was off the charts, tugged at your clothes with tears in her eyes and pitifully asked you for help, how would you feel? At least, Noah looked away unnaturally, feeling helpless. Seeing Noah's helpless look, Vera thought that Noah had rejected her request for help, and her eyes were filled with tears. Help me, only you can help me. After saying that, Vera pitifully added another sentence. If you are willing to help me, I can agree to any request you have. Noah really felt that his heart was about to explode. If Vera's appearance and actions could cause more than 10,000 points of damage to Noah, then, with this sentence, it was believed that any man would suffer tons of damage. This little devil's every move, every word, and every sentence was exuding a shocking allure, constantly evoking thoughts in people's hearts. If it was a person with an unstable mind, at this moment, wouldn't they have fallen? After all, even Noah had the impulse to make some unreasonable requests for a moment. From this point of view, Vera was really worthy of being a female devil. Noah could only smile bitterly, patted his cheeks, and looked around. Around them, all the men's eyes were about to pop out from Vera's teary and pitiful appearance. Noah sighed, reached out, and held Vera's hand that was tugging at the corner of his clothes. No matter what, let's leave here first. N. Vera nodded without any objection, and did not resist Noah's intimate action, obediently being led away by Noah. Looking at Vera being led away by Noah, the surrounding men's eyes were full of envy and jealousy. Presumably, these guys must have thought that Noah intended to kidnap Vera, find a place where no one was, and do something shameful and enviable, right? Chapter 1530. It had to be said that the journey to the throne hall was definitely the most torturous one Noah had ever walked in his life. Holding Vera's hand, Noah was attacked by all kinds of gazes along the way. It was as if they were looking at a cute child who was about to do something evil. To be honest, even Noah, who hated involving the innocent, had the urge to chop all the idiots around him into pieces. At this time, if he let go of Vera's hand because of the torment, it would make Noah feel guilty. Thus, Noah steeled his heart and held Vera's hand all the way to the throne hall. Vera didn't seem to understand why Noah's expression was so conflicted and why the people around her looked like they wanted to eat her alive. She tilted her head and was still at a loss. If there really were some uncles with special fetishes here, they would probably have a nosebleed after seeing Vera's appearance. This caused Noah to receive even sharper gazes along the way, which made it even more difficult to endure. In the end, Noah finally made it to the throne hall. As soon as he entered the throne hall, Noah saw a familiar face. Sarah? Shadora? Hearing Noah's voice, Sarah and Shadora, who were chatting peacefully, turned around and saw Noah. Just as Sarah and Shadora were about to greet Noah, they saw Noah holding Vera's hand and their expressions stiffened. Seeing Sarah and Shadora's stiff expressions, Noah immediately spoke. Let me make it clear, this isn't a child I kidnapped from somewhere. Before Sarah and Shadora could react, Vera, who was holding Noah's hand, retorted. I'm not a child. Unfortunately, that soft voice, rather than saying that it was refuting, it was better to say that it was coquettish. Sarah and Shadora finally realized what was going on. They looked at each other and smiled bitterly. We didn't say that you kidnapped the child, Sarah said teasingly. Or rather, if he could easily abduct the most powerful devil in the north, then I think I've definitely underestimated Mr. Noah. Vera won't be taken away by anyone. She's one of the trump cards of the northern district, Shadora complained angrily. Really, don't say those weird things, sister. Sister? Noah was stunned. So, you haven't told Mr. Noah about it yet? Sarah noticed Noah's surprise and smiled. Then let me reintroduce myself. I'm Sarah. My full name is Sarah Telderek. Telderek? Isn't that Shadora and Mandora's last names? Upon closer inspection, Sarah seemed to have the same red hair as Shadora and a pair of dragon horns that were far more mature than Shadora's. In addition, Shadora called Sarah sister. Could it be? Looks like you've guessed it. Sarah shrugged. That's right, I'm Shadora and Mandora's sister. I was originally a member of Salamandra. Later, due to some twists and turns, I wandered to the Southern District and coincidentally became the leader of Horn and the chairman of the Dragon Horn Griffin Lion Alliance. Hearing this, Noah tactfully shut his mouth. Why would Sarah, who originally belonged to Salamandra, wander to the Southern District and become the ruler of the Southern District? If she wanted to be the ruler of the Southern District, she wouldn't have to go through so much trouble, right? After all, Sarah was Shadora and Mandora's biological sister. If she stayed in Salamandra, it would only be a matter of time before she inherited the position of leader of Salamandra and became the ruler of the North District, right? If that was the case, why would she wander to the Southern District and become the ruler of the Southern District? Although these questions appeared in Noah's mind, Noah didn't ask. It wasn't that he couldn't ask, but that there was no need to. If he asked about other people's privacy, it would be meddling in other people's business. Therefore, Noah rationally didn't continue to ask. Upon seeing this, Sarah couldn't help but look at Noah with a trace of admiration in her eyes. Originally, Sarah thought that Noah only had some achievements in battle. Now it seemed that it wasn't just strength. In terms of wisdom and dealing with people, this hero also had a sharp side that others didn't have. But, that was also true. As a former member of Salamandra and the ruler of the Southern District, Sarah naturally heard about the Northern District being attacked by the Demon King of the Black Death. Of course, Sarah also knew that the person who played the most important role in solving the Demon King game was the man in front of her. Being able to solve the Demon King game was enough to prove that Noah wasn't a brute who only had strength. This made Sarah pay more attention to Noah. A human who had the ability to fight alone with humans in the final trial, and even posed a threat. Without a doubt, this person is the trump card against the three-headed dragon. Since Sky Army won't make a move, perhaps we have to place our hopes on him. This was the thought in Sarah's mind, and it was also the truth. At this time, Shadora looked at Vera curiously and asked Noah. Mr. Noah, why are you with Vera? Don't ask me, actually, I don't know what's going on. Noah sighed and pushed the confused Vera in front of everyone. This girl suddenly appeared and asked me to help her. Her words were also unclear, I'm a bit confused. Help her? Shadora was surprised. Help Vera? Help? Sarah was deep in thought and said to Vera. Could it be that you want Mr. Noah to help you deal with Demon King Maxwell? Vera's eyes lit up and nodded. Seeing this, Shadora seemed to have understood. Only Noah had a confused look on his face. Deal with Maxwell? What's going on? Sarah and Shadora's expressions suddenly became very strange. Vera trembled as if she had thought of something that would give her goosebumps. With tears in her eyes, she grabbed Noah's hand again. She looked like a child who had found a safe haven. Seeing this, Noah could more or less guess what was going on. Could it be that Maxwell and Vera have a grudge? That was the only possibility. Vera had a grudge against Maxwell, but she couldn't do anything to him. As a result, Vera was curious about Noah, who had once defeated Maxwell and came to ask for Noah's help. This was Noah's guess. However, Vera's next words made Noah's expression completely freeze. It's not a grudge. Vera corrected with tears in her eyes. That guy is just a nasty stalker who has been pestering her. A nasty stalker? Noah couldn't react at all. How should I put it? Sarah laughed bitterly. Let's put it this way. Devil King Maxwell has an excessive love for Vera. Before he came to the box court, he had been pursuing Vera. For this reason, he didn't hesitate to pester her. Even when Vera came to the box court, the Devil King cultivated in the outside world for hundreds of years and used his own strength to open the entrance to the box court. In the end, he chased her all the way here. This unexpected fact made Noah feel as if he had swallowed a fly. His face was full of bitterness. That's not an ordinary stalker," Vera said as if to show Noah her helplessness. "That guy likes to be intoxicated and delusional. I've already said that I don't like him anymore, but he keeps saying that I'm just throwing a tantrum and being shy. He keeps saying disgusting things. I hate him very, very much. But that guy can teleport. No matter where I go, he follows me. That guy, was he that disgusting?" No wonder Vera came to Noah for help. She was really annoyed to the point that she couldn't do anything, right? Just as Noah was thinking this, Shadora also spoke. "Moreover, we have reliable news that Devil King Maxwell seems to be moving around nearby. He seems to be preparing to use the three-headed dragon's body to do something." This sentence made Noah's eyes flicker. Chapter 1531. Around nighttime, No Name and Will-O-Wisp, who went to fight the three-headed dragon's avatar, successfully returned to the castle in triumph. Although the three-headed dragon's first-generation avatar was at the deity level, it was not that difficult to deal with it with the four-digit Letitia. In the castle, among the people who went to fight the three-headed dragon's avatar, other than Letitia, there was only the Queen's Knight who belonged to the Queen of Halloween who had four-digit combat power. Therefore, among the several groups who were assigned the mission to fight the three-headed dragon's avatar, other than the Queen's Knight, only Letitia's group completed the mission and returned on the same day. As soon as they returned to the castle, Noah met up with everyone in the minister's hall. At this time, in one of the reception rooms in the minister's hall, the people who belonged to No Name and Will-O-Wisp were gathered together. Ayaya. Looking at Vera, who was grabbing onto Noah's clothes as if she was grabbing onto a life-saving straw and not letting go, Jack said with a smile. As expected, she went to find Sir Noah. "Sister Vera is really something." Aisha looked at Vera, who was grabbing onto Noah's clothes, with a helpless and envious gaze, but she also expressed her understanding. "However, it can't be helped. Such a disgusting stalker is moving around. If it were me, I would also be scared half to death." "A stalker?" Black Rabbit said with a little hesitation. "It's really hard to imagine that the Demon King is a stalker. Not to mention, this stalker can teleport." Letitia also expressed her opinion, which was rare for her. "It's really the worst combination." "Then, what's the situation now?" Flying Bird pointed at Vera and said to Noah. "Are you going to help this child deal with the Demon King Maxwell?" "That's what I'm going to do." Noah picked up the teacup and took a sip of tea. A cold light flashed in his dark and deep eyes. "After all, I still have a score to settle with that guy." "You better be careful," Pest said in a seemingly unintentional manner. "Maxwell is a four-digit Demon King, and he also belongs to that Demon King Alliance. Since he is moving around, then the people of the Demon King Alliance are also moving around. You may be very strong, but if your opponent is not one person, but a group of Demon Kings, you may also fail miserably. Don't worry, I'm not that reckless." Noah placed the empty teacup in front of him. Letitia immediately stepped forward and filled the empty cup in Noah's hand with new hot tea before retreating obediently. Only then did Noah pick up the teacup again and drink little by little. As he drank, he answered. "Compared to strength, I'm more worried about how to deal with Maxwell's undying body. Last time, when I fought with that guy, I even used a special gift that works on undying, but he still didn't die. How should I deal with him? This is really a bit of a headache for me." "Is that so?" Yao tilted his head. "In other words, not even Noah has a way to deal with that Demon King Maxwell?" "That's not the case." Noah suddenly smiled. "Although I don't know what kind of principle Maxwell used to resurrect himself and what kind of gift he used, when the name Maxwell is mentioned, the first thing that comes to mind is naturally that physicist with a deep relationship with electromagnetism, optics, astronomy, and thermodynamics. I think that if we start from this aspect, we should be able to find a way to deal with that guy. After saying those words, Noah narrowed his eyes slightly. Besides, even if we can't find a way to deal with him, it doesn't matter. His power will be defeated by an even more powerful power. Even gods can be killed. A demon king of unknown origin is likely the same, right? Everyone nodded in succession. At this time, Jack bowed his head to express his gratitude to Noah. Thank you so much, Your Excellency Noah. If possible, we would also like to deal with Demon King Maxwell ourselves. However, although that Demon King is disgusting and vile, he is still a 4-digit number. Coupled with his immortal body and teleportation, even among the 4-digit number, there are not many who can deal with him. With our strength alone, we really can't do anything to him. We can only ask for help from you, who once suppressed him. You're welcome. Noah shook his head with a smile. Originally, if that guy appeared, I wasn't going to let him go. You just happen to have a grudge with him, which is in line with my purpose. Is that so? Jack shook his head and smiled. Regardless, thank you, Your Excellency Noah. Yes. Ai Xia also expressed her opinion. With Sir Noah protecting Sister Vera, there is no danger. As soon as Ai Xia's words came out, except for Noah and Vera, the rest of the people cast a mocking look at her. Ai Xia, who understood the meaning of everyone's gaze, blushed and glared back at them one by one. What are you looking at? Haven't you seen people chasing after idols? Everyone burst into laughter at once. Only Noah had a confused look on his face. Yao also laughed softly and looked at Vera. Noah's next mission is to protect her, right? Yes. Noah spread his hands. It's just a matter of convenience. Yao nodded and didn't say anything else. He just looked at Vera curiously. Vera also looked at Yao. After a while, she suddenly took out a cross-shaped blunt weapon. Bang! Along with a muffled sound, a cross-shaped blunt object suddenly flew out and heavily smashed on Yao's head, making him groan in pain. Everyone was shocked as they didn't expect Vera to suddenly attack Yao. You! What are you doing? Flying Bird stood up and glared at Vera. Is this how you treat your fellow protectors? Wait. Wait a minute. Ai Xia quickly stood up and held Flying Bird's shoulder in a fluster. That's Sister Vera's hobby. She doesn't mean any harm. Hobby? Flying Bird looked at Ai Xia in disbelief. Throwing a blunt weapon at someone's head is a hobby? 2. To be precise, it's a hobby of throwing a blunt weapon at someone you're interested in and seeing their reaction. Ai Xia laughed dryly. I've told Sister Vera many times, but Sister Vera won't change. I can't do anything about it. Anyway, I'll be more careful. Please forgive me. A hobby of throwing a blunt weapon at someone you're interested in and seeing their reaction? Noah looked at Vera with a complicated expression. I see. No wonder the way we met was so strange. For Vera, who was disgusted by Maxwell, Noah, who was able to suppress Maxwell, was indeed an object of interest. For this seductive little devil, it was indeed not an attack. Just like what Ai Xia said, it was just a hobby. The angry Flying Bird snorted coldly and turned his head away. Vera didn't seem to understand why Flying Bird was so angry. She looked at Flying Bird in a daze. Then, a new blunt weapon suddenly appeared in her hand. Bang dash. Flying Bird, who was still angry, felt an intense pain in her head. She held her head and squatted down. It was so painful that tears came out of her eyes. Unlike Yao, who used the life catalog to absorb the power of various beasts and had a very strong physique, Flying Bird's body was completely like that of a normal person. Being hit by a hammer was enough to cause serious injuries. You bastard. Flying Bird shouted angrily. Very well. I'll accept this fight. After saying that, Flying Bird held her swollen head and immediately wanted to fight 300 rounds with Vera. Seeing this, Ai Xia and Jack quickly rushed forward and held Flying Bird down. Wait. Wait. Miss Flying Bird. Please calm down. Let me go. Flying Bird struggled desperately. With this struggle, Flying Bird inadvertently kicked over the table in front of her. Then, everyone cried out in surprise. The tea set on the table flew into the air and spilled a large amount of water. Splash. In the next moment, everyone was drenched. The whole place suddenly became silent. Noah looked at his drenched body and then looked at the speechless crowd. He sighed. Today is really full of disasters. Chapter 1532. Since the extinction of the vampires, the vampire castle that was occupied by the fallen demon king Letitia had been abandoned for more than 1,000 years. Time was cruel. More than 1,000 years was enough to turn a bustling city into a dilapidated ruin. Although the vampire castle did not become a ruin, it was like a historical site, with traces of time everywhere. However, when the castle was used as a camp to deal with the oldest demon king, the situation inside changed a lot. Although it was not to the extent where it was when people first started living, but in order to survive, some necessary recovery was still needed. For example, bathing was a problem that had to be solved. Perhaps, for those men, it did not matter whether they took a bath or not. But for women, not taking a bath for a day was more unacceptable than taking their lives. Not to mention, the members of No Name were basically all women, and even the leaders of Thousand Eyes, Salamandra, and Dragonhorn Griffin Lion were all women. Under these circumstances, the 4 communities that were stationed in the throne hall naturally had to have a bathhouse. Perhaps it was because of the girls' interest, or perhaps it was because the rulers of the social class all wanted to relax during the battle against the oldest demon king, but the bathhouse prepared in the throne hall was especially large. The members of No Name and Will-O-Wisp who were drenched expressed that they were ready to take a bath in the bathhouse. Noah and Jack were also drenched. However, the two of them had completely different thoughts. Noah, like the girls, also wanted to take this opportunity to take a bath. It was unknown if Jack really did not have a body, but he did not care about the bathhouse at all. His body burned with a flame, directly evaporating the water vapor on his body, and then he happily left, expressing that it did not matter whether he took a bath or not. Under these circumstances, Jack left, and the girls went to the bathhouse. Black Rabbit and the others will use the bathhouse for about half an hour. Black Rabbit said to Noah. So, Mr. Noah, please take a bath after half an hour. Hearing this, Noah actually wanted to say that he only needed 10 minutes, please let him take a bath first. However, to let a group of young girls wait for him in the bathhouse for 10 minutes while soaking wet, he reckoned that these young girls wouldn't be willing to do so, right? Hence, Noah sensibly didn't bring it up. He could only stay in the room and wait for a full 30 minutes with a depressed expression. When his body was almost frozen like a dog, he got up and walked in the direction of the bathhouse. Halfway there, Noah suddenly stopped in his tracks, stunned. At this time, Noah finally remembered something extremely important. Where is the bathhouse? Noah had just returned to this world today, and he had also just moved in here today. How would Noah know where the bathhouse was? Could it be that after waiting for half an hour, he couldn't even take a shower in the end? Noah felt that if that was the case, then it was really too. Fortunately, at this time, his savior appeared. Mr. Noah? Sarah slowly walked over from the other side of the corridor and greeted Noah. Then, she saw Noah's wet appearance and was stunned, then stood up in surprise. How did you become like this? Well, there was an accident. Noah faintly sighed. So, now, I am going to find a bathhouse to take a good bath. Is that so? Sarah did not know if she had guessed something, but her gaze towards Noah was more or less filled with sympathy. Mr. Noah, it must have been hard on you. Whether it was hard or not is secondary. Noah looked at Sarah with a face that wanted to cry but had no tears. The problem is that I still don't know where the bathhouse is. I see. Sarah nodded in realization, reached out her hand, and pointed in a direction. The bathhouse is at. Speaking of this, Sarah suddenly stopped, not knowing what to think. She turned in another direction and pointed at the other end of the corridor. The bathhouse is in this direction. Walk along this corridor until you reach the end, you will see a small staircase. Go down there, if you see a door, then that is the bathhouse. Is that so? Noah said as if he was saved. Thank you, Sarah. It's a small matter, no need to thank me. Sarah pursed her lips and smiled. Then, I won't disturb Mr. Noah's bath. Okay. Noah nodded. Talk to you next time. Leaving this sentence, Noah could not wait to walk in the direction pointed by Sarah. Looking at Noah's gradually disappearing back, Sarah smiled. No matter what, he is still our trump card, I should treat him well. Black Rabbit and the others should forgive me, right? On the other side, Noah walked along the corridor for a full 5 minutes, but in the end, he still did not reach the end. Then, when he reached the end, Noah spent a lot of effort to find a staircase in a corner that could only allow one person to pass through. The staircase was dark and wet, reminiscent of an underground warehouse. Walking down the stairs, Noah finally found a door 10 meters below the ground. Looking at the door in front of him, Noah was somewhat speechless. It's just a bathhouse, is it necessary to make it so remote? With this thought, Noah pushed the door open and walked in. Unlike the outside, the inside was full of light, as if some kind of blessing was used to make the entire bathhouse very bright. The marble floor and walls looked very smooth. However, this was only the changing room. As for the bathroom, it was probably further inside. Looking around, Noah nodded with a little satisfaction. It seems that waiting for so long was not in vain. With this thought, Noah walked into the changing room, first removed the silver and platinum daggers from his back, put them in the corner, and stripped himself again and again, then opened the door to the bathroom. What appeared in front of Noah was an open-air bathhouse. Not only was it very spacious, but it was also foggy, making people feel relaxed and happy. The bathhouse was made of stones of various sizes and shapes. The water inside was a beautiful amber color, just like a hot spring. Looking up, the sky was full of stars, unusually beautiful. Taking a bath in such a place was simply the highest form of enjoyment. Even Noah, seeing such a bathhouse, had the urge to soak in it. And Noah did exactly that. Phew. Leaning against the wall at the edge of the bathhouse, his whole body soaked in the hot water, Noah exhaled very comfortably, extremely satisfied. Although there is an unimaginable great enemy, it's not like the people here don't know how to enjoy themselves. Logically speaking, in a situation where the box was facing the destructive disaster of the human final trial, the class leaders and communities active in the front line of battle should not do such a thing without any sense of danger. However, it was also not a good thing to be tense all the time. Proper relaxation was absolutely necessary. Taking this into consideration, it wasn't unforgivable for him to enjoy a bath. Of course, Noah did not know. In fact, the average person did not even know of this bathhouse's existence. Among the people stationed in the minister's hall, other than No Name, there were 3 other communities. The members of these 3 communities were mostly the Fire Dragon of the North and the Phantom Beasts of the South. Under such circumstances, even if a bathhouse was opened and used by a group of beasts, even if they did not all bathe together, for those girls who loved cleanliness, it was still very unbearable. Therefore, Black Rabbit, Flying Bird, Yao, Letitia, Pest, Sarah, Shadora, and the other girls all secretly opened another bathhouse. This bathhouse was only known by Black Rabbit and a very small number of people. In order not to be exposed, Black Rabbit deliberately said that it would take 30 minutes to brush off Noah. Who knew, in order to reward Noah, Sarah revealed this place to him. Therefore, Noah, who was comfortably enjoying himself, suddenly heard footsteps. A series of footsteps. Chapter 1533. Because Noah was the only one in the bathhouse, he heard the footsteps as soon as Noah heard them. Suddenly, Noah opened his eyes and looked at the door in confusion. Someone's here? This wasn't something to be surprised about. The bathhouse was so big that it was impossible for only one person to use it. Rather, it would be more accurate to say that it was normal for someone to come. However, it was normal for someone of the same gender to come. Therefore, when the conversation came from outside, Noah, who clearly heard the conversation, was completely stunned. "You stupid rabbit, you actually took so long to find a piece of clothing. You made us wait for you for so long." This was the voice of a flying bird. "It's so cold, I'm almost frozen." This was Yao's voice. "As a noble, if you can't even avoid such a low-level mistake, you will be ridiculed." This was Letitia's voice. "Undoubtedly, let me come by myself." This was Pest's voice. "What are you talking about? There's no reason not to move together, right?" This was AI Xia's voice. "So, sorry. It's all Lord White Yiksha's fault. When we came, he messed up Black Rabbit's clothes. Black Rabbit can't help it." This was Black Rabbit's voice with a sobbing tone. Hearing the voices of these familiar girls, Noah's body stiffened, his eyes widened, and he was completely confused. Why? Why are they here? This was Noah's only question. Undoubtedly, the group of girls had set off more than half an hour ago but waited until now to take action. From the conversation of the girls, it was easy to infer the reason. However, these were not important. What was important was that at this moment, Noah was undoubtedly facing a huge crisis. Although Noah came in first, if the girls found out that Noah was in the same bathhouse as them, then Noah would definitely be beaten to death. It sounded unreasonable, but sometimes, it was a woman's privilege to be unreasonable. Noah had already experienced this in many similar experiences. While they haven't taken off their clothes, it's still not too late to go out now. This was a complete self-deception. Because, even though the group of girls had not yet taken off their clothes, Noah was already completely naked. If he rushed out like this, he would definitely be treated as a hooligan or even a pervert. At that time, he would still be beaten to death. Understanding his current situation, Noah really shuddered. "Hurry up and go in. After being wet for so long, I'm going to die from the cold." Flying bird. "I'm freezing to death." No matter how cold it is, you can't rush it. That would be too inappropriate. "Letitia, can't you just change your clothes? Why was it so troublesome to take a bath? Isn't this too strange?" Pest, no, isn't it strange for you to think that way? AI Xia, all right. Everyone, hurry up and enter. In order to apologize to everyone, I'll let Black Rabbit scrub everyone's backs. Black Rabbit, as they chatted like this, the footsteps of the group of girls could be heard again. Moreover, they were still approaching this side. At this time, Noah was completely out of options. Thus, without any hesitation, Noah dodged and hid behind a rock at the side. At this time, the door was pushed open. A group of girls chatted as they walked in the direction of the bathing pool. Then, one by one, they walked into the bathing pool, causing the sound of splashing water to be heard. To be fair, Noah was also a man with good physical and mental health. Although he was not a pervert, when faced with this kind of temptation, he could not help but glance in the direction of the group of girls. Then, a paradise appeared in front of Noah. Flying bird soaked in the water and softly moaned with a satisfied expression. "I'm finally alive, it's so warm." Yao's beautiful face was flushed. "It's so comfortable, so you guys have been secretly hiding such a good place." AI Xia felt happy and envious at the same time. "You guys are truly too cunning." As for Black Rabbit and Letitia, they were soaking in the water with a comfortable expression. They were even stretching their bodies. Pest was the only one who seemed to be in a bad mood. She hugged her knees and curled up in a corner. "It's just getting wet. Can't you just change your clothes? Why do you have to take a bath?" Pest lived in the Middle Ages of the 1500s. At that time, bathrooms were still not common. The people's concept of cleanliness was also not very high. For Pest, who lived in such an era and wandered around the world as an undead for several hundred years after her death, taking a bath was undoubtedly a very troublesome matter. That was why this girl had a look of disdain on her face. No matter what, the white skin entered Noah's eyes one after another, causing Noah to feel somewhat excited. Although Yao, Pest and Ai Xia possessed the body shapes of children and their curves were not perfect, the immature feeling they gave off was still very alluring. Compared to the three of them, Fei Niao's figure was undoubtedly much better. Even though she was only 15 years old, her curves were already very obvious. Although her upper body was not very prominent, it was still very well proportioned. Seeing that, one's blood began to speed up. Black Rabbit and Letitia, on the other hand, completely displayed their destructive power. At this moment, due to the fact that Letitia had removed the ribbon on her head, her figure had turned into that of a mature woman. Her figure was simply off the charts. Black Rabbit's figure was also very good. Her curves were very prominent, causing one to be unable to shift one's gaze away from her. Seeing those two beautiful bodies, especially those plump upper bodies, Noah was truly unable to shift his gaze away. Fortunately, Noah possessed pretty good self-control. In the end, he did not shamelessly continue to look at them. However, Noah had already seen the bodies of the group of young girls. They were firmly imprinted in his mind. Instead, he felt as if he was unable to get rid of them and had a deeper impression of them. Unfortunately, if this continues, I'll definitely not be able to sleep tonight. Noah screamed miserably in his heart. I must quickly get out of this dangerous place. With that in mind, Noah made up his mind. He took a deep breath and quietly dived into the water, swimming toward the shore. Due to the beautiful amber color of the water in the bathtub, he was completely unable to see what was happening underwater. Under such circumstances, Noah avoided those places based on the location of the group of young girls he had just determined and swam toward the most inconspicuous corner. However, not long after he swam, Noah suddenly bumped into a soft area. That soft feeling caused Noah's heart to involuntarily sway. Emin? A puzzled voice sounded from the surface of the water. Noah's head subconsciously popped out of the water. In the next second, two pairs of eyes met. The person who entered Noah's field of vision was an unexpected yet expected person. Unexpected because the other party had not made a sound, so Noah did not know that the other party had also come here. Expected because, thinking about it carefully, this person should be here as well. After all, she was also completely drenched. Surprisingly, it was Vera. The young girl was blinking her eyes and looking at the stunned Noah. Her pretty face began to redden at a speed visible to the naked eye. Noah's face was stiff, but his line of sight could not help but move down. The full upper body that was beyond imagination was immediately imprinted into Noah's field of vision. Looking at the scene that was enough to make any man lose his mind, Noah's face was stiff, and his eyes were wide open. Vera did not know how to cover her most important part when Noah was staring at it, but her pair of eyes began to gather moisture. Seeing that the young lady was about to burst into tears and scream at any moment, Noah immediately felt that he was at the end of his rope. At this time, Ai Xia's strange voice sounded. Sister Vera, what's wrong with you? Ai Xia's voice attracted everyone's gaze to Vera's direction. It's over. This was Noah's only thought now. However, the next moment's development surprised Noah. He saw that Vera quivered, and the tears at the corner of her eyes instantly disappeared. She hugged Noah at an astonishing speed and turned around. Thus, Noah's figure was completely blocked by Vera. From the direction of the young girls, they could not see Noah at all. Chapter 1534. The young women present did not discover Noah's whereabouts in time. Merely, when they saw Vera suddenly turn around without any warning, the group of young women all became suspicious. Miss Vera? Black Rabbit asked in a probing manner. What's wrong with you? You couldn't possibly be planning to smash someone with a blunt object again, right? Flying Bird's tone was filled with displeasure. Let me make this clear first. If you do it again, I will definitely turn hostile this time. Ya did not say anything. Instead, he nodded his head repeatedly in agreement. I don't know if you all will turn hostile or not, Pest said in a somewhat vile manner. Merely, if you were to take off your clothes and enter the bath with a hammer, then even if you were to be smashed, you all should accept it. Don't say that. Ai Xia refuted. Even if it's big sister Vera, she wouldn't bring a blunt object into the bath, right? Ai Xia said those words in an extremely unconfident manner. This caused Flying Bird and Ya to cast disdainful gazes toward her. Since ancient times, there has never been anyone who would not put aside their differences and coexist peacefully in the same bath, right? Letitia opened her eyes and advised in a helpless manner. If we were to quarrel in this sort of place, we would appear to be too petty. It's better for us to take a comfortable bath first before we talk. Yes. Black Rabbit hurriedly echoed. What Lady Letitia said is correct. Everyone, the most important thing is to take a bath peacefully. Hearing those words, Flying Bird and Ai Xia immediately shut their mouths and no longer said anything. Due to being forcibly dragged into the bath together, Pest seemed to be in a very bad mood. However, she did not say anything and shrunk into a corner with a displeased expression. With such a disturbance, everyone's attention was no longer on Vera. This caused Vera, who was so nervous that even her body had tensed up, to heave a huge sigh of relief. However, Vera had no idea that Noah was currently in a very difficult situation. It was as if he was in a mountain of blades and a sea of flames. In order to block Noah's figure, Vera had been hugging Noah tightly. However, even though Vera's figure was extremely hot, she was very petite. It was completely impossible for her to block an adult. Therefore, only Noah's head was exposed above the water, while the rest of his body was submerged in the water. In this way, the petite Vera hugged Noah tightly. Her whole body was in Noah's arms, and there was zero distance between them. Not only that, Noah's head was being held. Furthermore, he was hugged from the front. Thus, Noah buried his entire head into Vera's great chest, unable to breathe at all. Noah didn't know why Vera would suddenly help him. However, Noah's mind was completely blank. An indescribable softness and elasticity surrounded Noah's entire face from all directions, and there was not even a thin layer of cloth as a barrier. In addition, under the water, Vera was also sitting in Noah's arms, closely sticking to him. This unprecedented feeling caused Noah's breathing to be completely cut off. At the same time, Noah's pores all over his body opened up and he shuddered. No, I can't. Noah desperately screamed in his heart. This is really too much. Vera, who was completely unaware that Noah was facing a physical and psychological crisis, was still rejoicing that they weren't discovered. She then lowered her head and looked at Noah, whose entire head was in her arms, softly asking, "Are you okay? Okay? No matter how you look at it, it doesn't look like he's okay." If this continued, Noah would really die in the arms of a natural Alita demon. Vera would obtain the glory of smoothly killing a hero who could even force humans into a desperate situation in the final trial. Moreover, it was under the circumstances of not losing a single soldier, not a single drop of blood or sweat. At that moment, Noah reached out his hand and pushed Vera's soft and delicate body under the water, trying to make this girl release him. "Ah!" Vera softly exclaimed, her face flushed red. Not only did she not release Noah, but she also hugged him even tighter. Don't touch me." It seemed that this girl thought that Noah was taking advantage of her. Noah wailed in his heart, but he didn't dare to touch Vera casually with his hands. He could only move his head in an attempt to break free from Vera's embrace. Ugh! Vera softly moaned in discomfort, her face turning even redder, and the hand that hugged Noah's head tightened. Don't move. It'll itch." Noah didn't move anymore. It wasn't because of anything else, but because his consciousness was gradually drifting away. Vera only now realized that something was wrong, and suspiciously released Noah's head. Ha! Noah immediately gasped for air as if he was drowning. In the quiet bathing area, this sound was too abrupt and too obvious. Eh. Black Rabbit's long rabbit ears slightly trembled, and he looked in Vera's direction with a face of surprise. What was that sound just now? Although the rest of the people didn't have as sharp a hearing as Black Rabbit, they more or less heard some strange sounds, and all of them looked in Vera's direction in puzzlement. Vera only felt that everyone's eyes were focused on her, and immediately subconsciously hugged Noah's head in her arms. Noah finally felt fear in his heart. Although it was an unimaginably wonderful feeling to be surrounded by Vera's proud bosom, it was something that could only be exchanged with his life. If he was hugged by Vera again, then this time, Noah didn't have the confidence to escape from death. Hence, before Vera could reach him, Noah dove into the water, leaving Vera with no chance of catching him. Vera suddenly lost her balance, and fell into the water, pressing down on Noah's body. Noah almost suffocated from the pressure. At this time, the doubts in the hearts of the group of girls rose to the peak. Flying Bird frowned, stood up, and walked in Vera's direction. What are you doing over there alone? Vera, who came out of the water, saw Flying Bird walking over, and suddenly became flustered. No. Nothing. There's nothing here. Unfortunately, Vera didn't know that this action was even more suspicious. However, before Fei Niao's doubts could rise, Vera, who was waving her arms in a panic, accidentally gave Fei Niao a hard push. Flying Bird suddenly exclaimed, and like Vera, she fell into the water. In the water, Noah, who was preparing to swim to the shore, felt a soft and delicate body pressing down on him, pressing away all the air in his lungs. Ah! Flying Bird, who fell into the water, screamed, hugged her chest, jumped up, and pointed at the water with a red face. There. There's something. There seems to be something in the water. With one sentence, the group of girls all stood up in surprise, and stared at the water surface. Coincidentally, Noah, who was just pushed out of his lungs by Flying Bird's fall, turned into bubbles and emerged from the water surface. The group of girls were all shocked, and one after another, they used their hands to cover their bodies. Who? Letitia's pair of deep red eyes flashed with a sharp light. Who's there? After saying that, Letitia's shadow on the water surface suddenly swelled up, turning into sharp shadow blades. They drew a perfect trajectory in the air, and like a storm, they fell on the water surface in front of Flying Bird and Vera. Bang! The storm-like shadow blades exploded the water surface, causing a huge splash in the bathing pool. Flying Bird and Vera, who were the closest to the pool, were directly swept away by the splash. They cried out in alarm, and then were caught by Black Rabbit and Yao. How? How is it? Ai Xia asked while trembling with fear. Is it dead? Pest was also staring intently at the surface of the water. With a frown on her face, she covered her body and slowly approached the water. Seeing this, Vera finally reacted, and a nervous expression appeared on her face. Everyone was staring at the water surface, causing the entire bathing pool to sink into an indescribable silence. After a while, a shadow appeared on the water surface. The group of girls opened their eyes wide. In the next instant, a person floated out of the water, and floated on the water surface like a corpse. Looking at that person, the pretty faces of the group of girls all turned red. Ah! Earth-shattering screams echoed in the air. Chapter 1535. Although no name, Thousand Eyes, Salamandra, and a dragon-horn vulture lion were all stationed in the throne hall, the various large communities were not stationed together. Instead, they each occupied an area within the throne hall, acting as the community's base of operations. At this moment, in the reception hall of the no-name base, Fei Niao was furious. This is unbelievable. The girls from the era of Zhao He seemed to have encountered an unimaginable disaster. On one hand, their faces were red from shame, and on the other, they kept shouting at Noah who was sitting in front of them. To actually do such a thing, can you still be considered human? do you have any sense of shame? Obviously, Fei Niao was still unable to take what happened in the bathhouse to heart. However, that was natural. It was believed that most girls who encountered such a thing would not be able to take it to heart. Fei Niao from the era of Zhao He was even more so. When Flying Bird thought about how she had not only been seen completely naked unknowingly, but also accidentally pressed her entire body against Noah's body, her entire body trembled. She simply wished she could strangle Noah to death and then commit suicide. Although the other girls did not react as fiercely as Fei Niao, their gazes towards Noah were also filled with condemnation. Ai Xia, on the other hand, was hiding behind Vera's back, mumbling to herself with a red face. Scene. 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 Noah Sama saw everything. Only Vera was at a loss as she looked at the scene in front of her. In the end, she could only look towards Noah with a pleading gaze. Sensing Vera's pleading gaze, Noah really felt like his stomach was hurting. Noah really wanted to scream out loud when he sensed the condemning gazes from the young ladies present. Undoubtedly, the person who should be asking for help is me. Of course, Noah did not shout out this sentence. Because, in the current situation, Noah did not have a friend who was worth asking for help. Therefore, Noah could only use the same words that he had said countless times before. I already said, I did not peep. Unfortunately, even the intelligent Noah did not understand the current situation. Actually, it didn't matter whether Noah was peeping or not. Compared to this matter, the only thing that the girls couldn't care about was the truth. Yao narrowed his eyes and looked at Noah with disdain as he stated the truth. But you still saw it, didn't you? Noah was at a loss for words. That was right. Regardless of whether he was peeping or not, it was a fact that Noah had seen all the girls' bodies. As long as this fact existed, it didn't matter whether Noah was peeping or not. Seeing that Noah had fallen into a state of silence, the girls present all revealed embarrassed and angry expressions. What? Pest spoke in a mocking manner. So, you're also this kind of person? Woo. Black Rabbit's eyes were filled with tears. You too, the symbol of purity, was sullied just like that. I don't have the face to call myself a Hakata noble anymore. No matter what, you've gone too far this time, Letitia also sighed. My master, looking at girls' bodies is an action that is much heavier than what you imagined. The girls all nodded their heads heavily. They seemed to be in great agreement with Letitia's words. Seeing this, Noah's expression became resentful. In the end, he spread his hands helplessly. In other words, you all want me to take responsibility? Take responsibility? The young girls all cried out in surprise, and their beautiful faces once again turned red. Flying Bird was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Her face and ears turned red as she cried out. Who wants you to take responsibility? Noah was immediately at a loss. In other words, I don't need to take responsibility. Once those words were said, Black Rabbit, Flying Bird, Yao, Letitia, Pest and even Ai Xia all looked at Noah with their coldest gazes. This caused Noah to shiver all over. He wanted to cry but had no tears. He couldn't take responsibility, and he couldn't not take responsibility either. What exactly were they planning to do? As expected, women were mysterious creatures. It was impossible to understand their hearts. Speaking of which, Flying Bird seemed to be unwilling to add more shame to this matter. She turned around and glared at Vera. Why did you help this guy hide it from us? After hearing Flying Bird's words, the group of girls suddenly remembered. The first person to discover Noah's whereabouts was undoubtedly Vera. However, not only did this girl not report it, but she also covered up for Noah. This led to the tragedy that happened later. Thus, all the young ladies turned their gazes to Vera. In fact, Noah was also very curious. He didn't know why Vera would help him. Although it was because of Vera that Noah encountered all kinds of life-threatening dangers, which led to the tragedy that happened later, it was right. Under the watchful eyes of everyone present, Vera opened her mouth hesitantly. Since he protected me, I have to protect him too. Vera only protected Noah because he planned to protect her from Maxwell. How should one put it? This girl who appeared to be completely unworldly was much purer and kinder than everyone imagined her to be. However, the so-called good intentions doing bad things was undoubtedly referring to Vera's situation. Ah. Really? I still can't let go of this. Flying Bird seemed to feel that she had suffered a great loss. She spoke to Noah in a somewhat impatient manner. Forget about Letitia and Pest. But for us, you have to give us an explanation. Pest immediately revealed an expression of disbelief. What do you mean forget about me? I've also been seen naked. The one who replied to Pest was not Flying Bird. Instead, it was Yao. But aren't you Noah's subordinate? I am only his subordinate. Pest retorted. I'm not his pet. Black Rabbit, Flying Bird, Yao and the others all revealed surprised expressions. What kind of expression is that? Pest was immediately enraged. Could it be that you all think that I am that guy's pet? Black Rabbit, Flying Bird, Yao and the others looked at each other in dismay. Even if you say that, Flying Bird said bluntly. When you first became Noah's subordinate, didn't you even wear a pet suit? Pest's expression froze. That should be enough to prove everything, right? Yao also spoke bluntly. After all, I even wore such a shameful costume. I was forced to wear it. Otherwise, how could I possibly wear that sort of costume? Pest shouted. Do you think that I am that shameful rabbit over there that could wear a bunny girl costume as casual clothes? Shameful. Shameful rabbit? Black Rabbit's ears suddenly stood erect. She was immediately enraged. You actually called the noble moon rabbit a shameful rabbit? This is truly unbelievable. I was also forced to wear those clothes by Lord White Yiksha. Furthermore, that is not a bunny girl costume. I am definitely not a shameless rabbit. Once again, Flying Bird and Dazzling revealed a surprised expression. Seeing that, Black Rabbit started to shiver. In the end, she hugged Letitia with tears in her eyes. Lady Letitia. Letitia hugged Black Rabbit with a look of not knowing whether to laugh or cry. She patted Black Rabbit's back and gently consoled her. Don't mind it, Black Rabbit. Even if everyone thinks that you are a shameful rabbit, I will still recognize your nobility and purity as Moon Rabbit. Lady Letitia, Black Rabbit was so moved that she started to cry. Seeing the original denunciation assembly suddenly turn into a chaotic civil war and then into a touching scene, Vera and Ai Xia were both stunned. What kind of situation was this? Noah, who was originally the target of public criticism but was now directly ignored and cast aside, was also dumbfounded. Seeing Letitia and Black Rabbit hugging each other in such a touching scene, Flying Bird and Yao high-fiving each other like problem children who had succeeded in their prank, Pest's dumbfounded expression, Vera and Ai Xia's dumbfounded expressions, Noah fell silent. After a long time, Noah sighed emotionally and said, "Don't worry. As expected, I am out of touch. Am I unable to keep up with everyone's rhythm?" In the end, as the main culprit, Noah was reduced to a spectator. This caused this farce to come to an end. Chapter 1536. Sigh. Lying on the bed in the room assigned to No Name's throne hall, Noah sighed and muttered to himself in extreme exhaustion. Today is really a day full of disasters. Undoubtedly, it had only been a day since he returned to this world, but a lot of things had happened. First, there was the fact that AZ Dakaha was temporarily sealed. Then, there was the hidden danger of the three-headed dragon's body wreaking havoc on the earth. Then, he learned that the 16 knights had been severely injured. In order to go to AZ Dakaha's sealed place and discuss with White Yiksha, he happened to meet the great sage, Heaven's Equal, and learned that the upper levels of the box court were prepared to abandon the lower levels. Then, White Yiksha transferred the sovereignty of the sun, which all the gods in the heaven realm coveted, to Noah. Moreover, it was a full 14-sun sovereignty. For this, Noah even had a short confrontation with the great sage, heaven's equal, and thoroughly experienced the power of the half-star spirit, the great sage, heaven's equal, who had been the enemy of the heaven realm to the greatest extent since the creation of the box court. Compared to this, Griffith's level of trouble was just an interlude within an interlude. There was no need to even think about it, and Noah did not take it to heart at all. In just a short day, he had encountered so many things, and it seemed that even God could not bear to see it, and thus arranged a farce, letting Noah see the naked posture of the girls around him in the bathhouse, and being given such a great benefit by Vera to enjoy. Although, in the end, it was just a farce that made Noah even more tired, but no matter what, he still took a lot of advantage. If it was a man in good health, he would probably have already taken the benefits in the bathhouse as his own side dish, and might even have rubbed a few times. Unfortunately, Noah not only had two delicate fiancées, but also a concubine who had sent herself to his door. He would not do such a regrettable thing in the middle of the night when he could not bear the loneliness. Compared to these things, Noah had more important and valuable things to do. At that moment, Noah closed his eyes and immersed himself in the depths of his heart. In the center of the boundless universe ocean, the outline of the stone plate, which was connected to 10 independent patterns, was still quietly suspended there. At the center of the stone plate was the mark of a sun. In the sun's imprint, the 16 imprints each occupied a region, equally dividing the entire sun. Among them, the lion and dragon inscriptions were emitting a sun-like radiance. That was the proof that the Leo constellation of the 12 zodiac signs and the dragon constellation of the 12 equatorial stars were working. Since the two sun sovereigns were radiating brilliance, it meant that Noah was strengthening the two sun sovereigns. Apart from the lion and dragon, the other 14 seals were completely dull, proving that Noah was not using their powers. Now that I'm free, let's study the sovereignty of the sun bestowed by White Yiksha. The sovereignty of the Leo constellation gave Noah an invulnerable body. The dragon's sovereignty of the sun could strengthen Noah's power and strengthen Noah's spirit. The two sun sovereigns benefited Noah a lot. If he could obtain the strengthening and abilities of the other 14 sun sovereigns, Noah's strength would definitely soar by several levels. However, the strengthening of the sun sovereigns might not necessarily be useful to me. For example, the dragon sun sovereigns could greatly increase the spirit lattice, but Noah did not have a spirit lattice, so he could only use another way to increase his power and spirit. The same was true for the 14 sun sovereigns that White Yiksha had transferred to Noah. Therefore, Noah needed to thoroughly study the nature and characteristics of these sun sovereigns, just like the dragon sun sovereigns, and find another way to use them. That would be the most beneficial for Noah. Just as Noah was about to do this work, a voice sounded in his mind. "Leave this matter to me," Lin Mingya said. The sudden voice startled Noah for a moment before he spoke. "Athena?" It was Athena's voice. "I am also very interested in the sun sovereigns." Athena's interested voice echoed in Noah's mind. "Although the sun is just an object of hatred for me, that is a thing of the past. Now, I am not the goddess of snakes, but the spirit of steel. Wouldn't it be more efficient to leave this matter to me?" Indeed. As the former goddess of earth, Athena's greatest hatred was undoubtedly the sun. However, as the saying goes, the person who understands you the most will always be your opponent. Therefore, Athena, who hated the sun and treated it as her mortal enemy, definitely understood the sun the most. She might even understand the sun better than White Yiksha. In addition, although Athena was no longer a goddess, she had not lost her past wisdom. Instead, because she had peeked into the knowledge of various worlds stored in Noah's mind, she had a tendency to go further. It was definitely a good choice to let Athena study another way to use the sun sovereigns. The amount is quite large, and it might take a long time. However, if I were to do it, it would be faster than you, right? Athena said. Moreover, you don't have that much time to study the sun sovereigns. There are many things outside that you need to do. It is not a wise choice to do it yourself. That's true. Noah scratched his cheek and smiled. Then, can I ask you to do it? I am now only your possession. Athena's light laughter echoed in Noah's mind. Although it's inconceivable that I, who was once the queen of the divine realm, would need to help a human solve his problems, and even serve him with the identity of a follower, I'm not someone who would run away from the truth. Perhaps this is the true fate between you and me. That's for sure. Hearing this, Noah could not help but smile. At this moment, an emotionless voice sounded in Noah's mind. Master, I can also help. Aster? Noah was taken aback and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Aster, can you help too? No problem. Aster said without hesitation. Even a half-baked elf can help Master, there is no reason why I, as a proper sword elf, can't help Master. Ugh. Noah felt helpless. I say, Aster, you are just acting out of spite, right? For a moment, Aster suddenly went silent. Then, he spoke with an emotionless voice. There is no such thing. However, Noah was speechless. Now, Noah was sure that Aster was just acting out of spite and jealousy. Perhaps Athena had the same conclusion as Noah, she chuckled. Since that is the case, Holy Sword Elf, I will allow you to help me. Noah was surprised. Can you really do it? Master, Aster said with some dissatisfaction. I can do it. Don't underestimate your Holy Sword Elf. Athena said. Although she isn't as wise as I am, she is still the strongest elf who has lived in the elemental world for more than 1,000 years. Perhaps, I can combine what this elf has seen and heard over the past 1,000 years and find a way to make use of the sun's sovereignty from an elf's perspective. Is that so? Noah nodded in realization. Then I will leave it to you. I am Master's sword. Aster's voice became lighter. As you wish. It seemed that Aster's mood was really good because he wasn't pushed out. Although she had lived for more than 1,000 years, this elf girl was as pure as a child. Thinking about this, Noah's face couldn't help but reveal a smile. Suddenly, Noah's smile froze. So. Accompanied by a very slight sound of breaking through the air, a black shadow flew past the window and disappeared in an instant. How could Noah not understand that he was spied on just now? Humph. Noah snorted and suddenly stood up. His body turned into a ray of light and flew out of the window. Chapter 1537. Amidst the faint sound of breaking air, a figure flashed through the night sky like a ghost. With a flash, it instantly appeared at a place 100 meters away. Not only that, the figure actually avoided all the patrolling people in the process of running. It followed the most secretive route and rushed past. From beginning to end, no one noticed it. When Noah jumped out of the window of his room, the figure in front of him had just disappeared and left Noah's field of vision. During this process, the surrounding patrolling people still did not discover any trace of the other party. This was not a joke. Not to mention the throne hall where the 4 communities, No Name, Thousand Eyes, Salamandra, and Dragon Horn Vulture and Lion, were stationed, the entire vampire's castle had patrolling people. It could be said that the security was tight. And the other party was actually able to avoid everyone's eyes and ears while patrolling so many communities. This was enough to prove that the other party was not simple. Why would such a person suddenly appear here and spy on Noah? While thinking about this question, Noah's figure had already turned into an afterimage. He violently shot out and chased after the figure in front of him that had completely disappeared from his field of vision. With the support of LV6 ability value, now, even if Noah did not use any strength, his speed had reached an astonishing level. The figure that was escaping did not seem to have any way to gain an advantage in this aspect. Therefore, in just a few short seconds, Noah, who had rushed out, discovered the black figure that had flashed into an alley. Without any hesitation, Noah also dodged and darted into the alley. The tip of his foot touched the ground with extreme agility. His body was like a bullet that was shot out of a barrel as he violently shot in the direction of the fleeing black shadow. In the next moment, Noah suddenly caught up with the running figure in front of him. Staring at the back of the figure, Noah's eyes trembled as he gathered power in his hands. At this time, the distance between Noah and the other party was only a short 2 to 3 meters. At this distance, Noah could instantly erase it. The distance between the other party and Noah was so close that they could reach out and touch each other. Noah naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity. Next, Noah only needed to reach out and grab the other party. Then, he would be able to take the other party down. If the other party resisted, Noah wouldn't be so polite when the time came. However, just as Noah was about to reach out and grab the shoulder of the figure in front of him, what happened next caused Noah's pupils to shrink. Buzz! One could only see the body of the nearby figure suddenly tremble. Soon after, it suddenly disappeared from the spot. Noah saw it clearly. At this moment, the figure that was only 2 or 3 meters away from Noah suddenly appeared 100 meters away and continued to rush forward. This unbelievable scene caused Noah's eyes to flicker. In Noah's memory, there were only 3 kinds of power that could do such a thing. The first was the power of the seraphic speed. It was able to shorten the distance of movement in the sense of controlling time, allowing one to obtain unimaginable speed. It was not difficult to appear and disappear unpredictably and appear in another place in an instant. The second kind was teleportation. Whether it was teleportation magic or teleportation, they could all achieve the same thing. The last kind caused Noah's dark and deep eyes to flicker. However, he did not hesitate. His body was like lightning as he rushed forward and chased after the fleeing figure. However, this time, Noah did not attack that person. Instead, it was as if he planned to follow the other party. He firmly hung at a distance of less than 4 or 5 meters from the other party. Although the person in front didn't turn around, he seemed to know Noah's plan like the back of his hand. He didn't use the power that could appear and disappear unpredictably, which was comparable to God's speed and teleportation. Instead, he maintained this speed and rushed forward. The two of them flew forward tacitly until they arrived at the edge of the ancient castle. When they reached a small path where no one was, they suddenly stopped. Noah immediately slowed down and slowly came to a stop. A silent atmosphere suddenly spread out and shrouded the entire space. Noah and the person in front of him did not take the initiative to make a move. One of them had his back facing Noah, while the other just stood there quietly. Neither of them spoke. In the end, the first person to speak was neither Noah nor the person in front of him, but the third person present. "Since you don't plan to speak, then I will speak first." Following such a voice, a figure walked out from the shadows and imprinted itself in Noah's eyes. Looking at the person slowly walking out from the shadows, Noah could not help but curl his lips. "It really is you." The person who came was a youth with white hair and white clothes. It was the 10th incarnation of Vishnu, the hero who saved the world during the apocalypse Galgi. As for the person who led Noah here, it was naturally the girl who had been by Galgi's side and had the gift of distance control. "Ling, Your Highness, you are so annoying." Ling turned around in dissatisfaction and grumbled. "I thought I should at least be more patient than him so that I can take the lead in the following conversation." "This idea is understandable, but unfortunately, you used the wrong person." Ling Galji's expression did not change. "Compared to us, he doesn't need to be anxious at all. Besides, as matters stand, do you still think we can take the lead in front of someone who can even force humans into a corner in the final trial?" Ling was speechless. Only then did Galji raise his head and meet Noah's gaze as he spoke indifferently. "Long time no see. Should I say that? I don't care." Noah's expression did not change at all. "Although I don't think you want to see me again." In all fairness, Galji and Ling's abilities were extraordinary. Putting aside the fact that they belonged to the Demon King Alliance, they were able to stir up chaos in the entire 54545 outer sect and even release AZ Dakaha. No matter how one looked at it, they were much stronger than many of the pretentious existences in the box court. However, with Noah here, not only did Galji and his group repeatedly hit a wall, they even almost died in Noah's hands. In the end, If it wasn't for the two suns' sovereignty and the another cosmology as a bargaining chip to buy their lives from Noah, Galgi, the hero of the apocalypse, would not have lived to this day. Under such circumstances, it would not be an exaggeration to say that Noah was a nightmare for Galgi and his group. That was why Noah had mocked him like that. In response, Galgi nodded calmly. Indeed, if it's possible, I don't want to meet you when I don't have any way to deal with you. After all, we hid in the dark and schemed so much to obtain the sovereignty of the two sun, but because we provoked you, we lost everything, Ling also said awkwardly. For people who can't be calculated, people like me who was trained to be the controller of the gift game really don't want to get involved at all. But you still came, and you took such a big detour to lead me here, Noah looked around and said intentionally or unintentionally. When I recognized your method of controlling the distance, I was thinking that you lured me out either to set a trap for me or to talk to me about something. Now it seems that it should be the latter. That's right, Ling said with a smile. So, little brother, you don't have to observe the surroundings anymore. There is no ambush around. Come to think of it, if there is an ambush, it wouldn't choose to ambush here. If it isn't good and the people in the castle are attracted, then you will be the ones to suffer in the end. Noah shrugged. In that case, tell me your intentions. I hope it's not something boring. Don't worry, for you, it's definitely not a bad thing. Galgi looked at Noah and said so. I want to cooperate with you to eliminate Maxwell. Chapter 1538. Get rid of Maxwell? Galgi's words made Noah frown deeply. Noah was no longer as clueless about Galgi's situation as he was at the beginning. This hero was destined to save the world in the apocalypse. Although he was still immature, he was an important chess piece for the Demon King alliance that created him. In order to monitor this important chess piece, Maxwell was sent by the Demon King alliance to stay by Galgi's side. After all, as long as Maxwell could freely manipulate the realm of cold and heat and teleport, it would not be easy for Galgi's group to do anything even if they wanted to. At least, in Noah's opinion, Maxwell, who had the ability to teleport and an immortal body, was far more powerful than an incarnation of Vishnu who had yet to complete his spiritual lattice. With Maxwell's strength, it would not be difficult to suppress Galgi and even Glea and Aurora who were beside Galgi. As for Ling, although this girl's gift was relatively rare and was equivalent to being invincible if used well, with Maxwell's teleportation, no matter how far the distance was, it could be instantly shortened to 0, which was just enough to completely restrain Ling's gift. Therefore, the Demon King alliance had Maxwell by Galgi's side to monitor him. Now, Galgi wanted to make a move on Maxwell. There was only one meaning. I see. Noah glanced at Galgi. You're not willing to just be someone else's chess piece and finally intend to raise the flag against the Demon King alliance? The Demon King alliance? Galgi suddenly said so in an extremely sarcastic tone. Do you really think that the person behind me is the Demon King alliance made up of all kinds of demon kings? This sentence made Noah raise his head, and his frown deepened. What do you mean? It's very simple. Galgi said directly. On the surface, we demon kings have united for the sovereignty of the sun and launched attacks on various major regions. In fact, the person who is secretly unifying us demon kings is not the demon king. It's not the demon king? Noah was stunned. What? Don't you already know about it? Bell asked in a meaningful manner. The gods of the upper echelons are preparing to abandon the box court and gather the sovereignty of the sun to create a new box court. Hearing this, Noah's heart skipped a beat, and his eyes flickered. Have you finally realized it? Ling suddenly smiled. That's right. The ones who are secretly controlling the Demon King alliance and collecting the sovereignty of the sun are some of the upper class of gods. Us demon kings are at most their chess pieces, objects of their control. Undoubtedly, he's a god, but he's secretly manipulating the Demon King to attack the major areas in the lower levels, trying to collect the sovereignty of the sun. Do you think I'll obediently be manipulated by someone like that? Galgi said firmly. Therefore, I want to raise the flag of rebellion against the Demon King Alliance. No, I want to raise the flag of rebellion against the upper echelons of the Box Court and break away from their control. And the first step is to get rid of the informant the Demon King Alliance planted here. Galgi looked at Noah with burning eyes. You want to deal with Maxwell too, don't you? How about working with us? Noah was silent. Without responding to Galgi's invitation, Noah crossed his arms, closed his eyes, and fell into deep thought. Galgi and Ling were not in a hurry, quietly waiting for Noah to make a decision. After a while, Noah opened his eyes and suddenly asked, "Why are you so sure that I want to deal with Maxwell?" "There are 2 reasons," Galgi said confidently. "The first reason is naturally vera za ignifartes. You're already prepared to protect that great demon of the life and death realm from Maxwell, right? You've collected quite a lot of information." Noah snorted. "What's the second reason?" "The second reason is naturally Maxwell's threat." Ling answered Noah's question. "Actually, little brother, you know very well that Maxwell is a very big threat. With his manipulation realm and the ability to teleport at will, he's definitely able to destroy this camp. Not long ago, the Demon King Alliance attacked the East, South, and North regions. Maxwell was responsible for the attack on the East. At that time, Maxwell used his ability to teleport all the clones of the 3-headed dragon to the East in an instant, almost causing a devastating disaster to the East. Now, there are also a large number of clones of the 3-headed dragon outside, and there is no lack of first-generation deities among them. If Maxwell uses his power to send the clones to this camp or even to other areas in the lower levels like the last time he attacked the East, then whether it's this camp or other places in the lower levels, they will be destroyed by the 3-headed dragon's clones." Ling directly said what Noah was most worried about. "In order to prevent this from happening, we guessed that once you receive news of Maxwell's activities, you will definitely want to deal with him. Protecting vera za ignifartes is just a matter of convenience, right?" "It's not a matter of convenience." Noah did not deny it, but corrected one point. "Maxwell seems to be madly in love with Vera, right?" This sentence made Galgi and Ling understand. "I see." Galgi smiled faintly. "Do you plan to use vera za ignifartes to lure Maxwell out?" Hearing this, Noah looked deeply at Galgi and laughed. "As expected, we are not jackals of the same tribe." Galgi was stunned. "I'll tell you directly," Noah said indifferently. "I will not use the people around me. The reason I'm protecting Vera is, as you said, just a matter of convenience. The second reason is that staying by Vera's side is most likely to meet Maxwell. I've never thought of using that girl to do anything." "You'd better not misunderstand." Galgi and Ling were instantly speechless. At the same time, they felt a trace of respect for Noah in their hearts. Undoubtedly, he had wisdom far beyond the average person, but he had never thought of himself as superior to others and made the people around him act under his control. Undoubtedly, he had the power to do whatever he wanted, but he had never thought of using his own power to satisfy his own desires. Such a person might seem foolish in the eyes of some pretentious people. However, Galgi and Ling knew that only those who adhered to certain bottom lines and had strong beliefs were truly difficult to deal with and truly powerful people. Noah was without a doubt such a person. He had the power to force humans into despair in the final trial, as well as wisdom that surpassed Ling, who had been raised as a game controller. He even had strong beliefs and righteousness. Why would such a person worry about not becoming world-renowned? After understanding this, Ling felt reverence in her heart, while Galgi felt a little jealous. Like Noah, Galgi had been born with intelligence and knowledge and didn't have the growth of a normal human. The two of them could be said to have the same background. However, compared to Noah, who had his own beliefs, Galgi was just going with the flow, trying to resist his fate as a tool. In various senses, the two of them weren't on the same level. While Galgi and Ling had their own thoughts, Noah shrugged. "But you're right. I have a reason to deal with that stalker. Besides, both of you paid a huge price to survive from me, but that bastard escaped under my nose. I'm really unhappy about it, so it's time to settle the score with him. Hearing Noah's words, Galgi and Belle exchanged glances and smiled. Galgi looked straight at Noah. You agree to work together? Whether we can work together or not depends on what you can do, Noah said. You came to me because you can't deal with Maxwell, so you want me to do it. Since I'm the one doing it, what kind of value can you bring to the table? We can only work together based on this point. Of course, Galgi nodded. We will bring out our value. For example, Ling said with a smile. We can make Maxwell appear before you and accept his death obediently. Noah's eyes glinted as though he understood what Ling meant. Chapter 1539. Early in the morning, the warm sunlight shone from the other side of the mountain range. The sun slowly rose, sweeping away the gloomy weather from the day before, causing the world to be filled with vitality out of nowhere. In a forest, 3 figures were sitting opposite each other, occupying different corners of an open space. Lying on the ground like a dozing beast was a pitch-black griffin. Sitting on the rock was a demoness in a black robe, holding a harp in her arms. There was also a man who was dressed like a clown, leaning against the trunk of a tree with his arms crossed. These 3 people were Glea, Aurora, and Maxwell. However, at this moment, the 3 of them had different expressions. Glea seemed to have fallen asleep. He lay there with his eyes closed and didn't move at all. Aurora kept wiping the harp in her hands with a leisurely look. Only Maxwell frowned as if he was extremely dissatisfied with something. A trace of anxiety could be seen faintly between his brows. After maintaining this scene for about half an hour, the sun finally rose high into the sky and illuminated the entire land. Maxwell seemed to have finally lost his patience. He put down his arms in front of him, straightened his body, and couldn't help but speak. Why aren't His Highness and military advisor back yet? This sentence made Aurora, who was wiping the harp, stop what she was doing. Glea, who was dozing off, also opened one of his eyes. The 2 of them looked at each other and saw the words finally lost patience in each other's eyes. So, Aurora spoke. Didn't I already tell you that His Highness has something important to do? Aurora only mentioned Galgi, but not Belle. That was because Aurora knew that Maxwell didn't care about Belle's life at all. To Maxwell, Galgi, who could help the gods behind the Demon King Alliance survive the apocalypse, was the most important thing. As for the rest, whether it was Belle, Glea, or Aurora herself, Maxwell didn't care at all whether they were dead or alive. As expected, Maxwell didn't care about Belle's whereabouts at all. He only spat out some anxious words about Galgi's whereabouts. Something important? What was so important that he had to do it all night? What is it? Even if you ask me, I don't know, Aurora replied calmly. His Highness only said that he had something to do. We are just subordinates. What right do we have to ask? Is that so? Maxwell glanced at Aurora and asked suspiciously. Do you really not know anything? It was easy to tell from Maxwell's words. This Demon King was filled with distrust towards Aurora's words. In fact, this distrust had started to appear a month ago. The reason was simply because Galgi had lost the sovereignty of the 2 sons that he had obtained with great difficulty. For the Demon King Alliance, the importance of the son's sovereignty was beyond doubt. Galgi had lost 2 son sovereigns, which made the gods behind the Demon King Alliance very unhappy with this item. However, Galgi's tool was still useful to the Demon King Alliance and the gods behind it. Therefore, after Galgi used the excuse that he had no choice but to do it to save his life, the Demon King Alliance could only suppress the dissatisfaction in their hearts and couldn't say anything else. However, the Demon King Alliance also began to have some criticism towards Galgi. After all, Galgi was just a tool to the Demon King Alliance. Galgi himself understood this very well. Therefore, many people thought that Galgi was very likely to betray the Demon King Alliance and deliberately hid the son's sovereignty. In view of this, Maxwell, who was in charge of monitoring Galgi's group, naturally had distrust in them. Therefore, Maxwell was a little anxious about Galgi's whereabouts. Because Maxwell didn't know if Galgi was planning to do something secretly. If it weren't for Aurora and Glea still staying here, Maxwell might even think that Galgi had escaped. That might not be the case. Glea didn't know if he saw through Maxwell's thoughts, but he, who was dozing off, spoke in a deep voice. We are all here to pledge our loyalty to His Highness. Since you don't know where His Highness is going, how can we know? The implication was that since Galgi didn't tell Maxwell where he was going, there was no reason to tell Glea and Aurora. With regards to this statement, Maxwell naturally scoffed at it. If Galgi really planned to do something behind the Demon King Alliance's back, it was impossible for him to let Maxwell know. Therefore, Glea's statement was simply a joke to everyone in the know. However, on the surface, they were still partners in the same camp. If it was exposed, there would be no way to continue to maintain a good relationship, and they would fall out with each other. Before confirming that Galgi and the others really had ulterior motives, there would be no benefit in doing so. Although Maxwell was extremely narcissistic and mentally twisted, he wasn't a fool. Maxwell still understood this kind of thing. At that moment, Maxwell said directly, "No matter what, get His Highness to come back quickly. I can't let anything happen to him." Maxwell's words were full of warning. It was obvious that Maxwell's patience had been worn out. Sensing this, Aurora and Glea didn't say anything on the surface, but they were more or less anxious. At this moment, a playful and cute voice sounded around them. "Mr. Maxwell, don't be so anxious." As this voice sounded, Galgi and Belle suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Ling looked at Maxwell and said unwillingly, "What are you talking about? With me around, would anything happen to His Highness?" Aurora and Glea immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Maxwell also loosened his furrowed brows and glanced at the calm Galgi. Then, he put on an act and spread out his hands. "It's not that I don't trust Sir Military Advisor, I'm just a little worried about His Highness' safety." Judging from Maxwell's pretentious behavior, even a layman could tell that he didn't mean what he said. However, Galgi smiled as if he didn't notice anything. "Sorry to have made you worry." "Don't mention it," Maxwell said perfunctorily, then asked again. "Speaking of which, where did His Highness go all night?" It seemed like a question of concern, but it was actually just a question. However, it wasn't Galgi who answered Maxwell's question, but Belle. "We went to collect information," Belle said. "Mr. Maxwell, I'm afraid you don't know that Noah Dole is back. He's now in the vampire's castle in the sky." "Noah Dole?" Maxwell's eyes narrowed. "He's not dead? How could the person who defeated all of us die so easily?" Galgi's lips suddenly curled up slowly. "Not only is he not dead, but he seems to be living quite comfortably now." "Nourish?" Maxwell was stunned. "That's right," Belle said exaggeratedly. "Mr. Maxwell, you don't know. Undoubtedly, the entire underworld is facing a terrible disaster like the human's final trial. Not only is that man not nervous at all, but he's also recently getting along very well with a charming northern devil. That devil seems to be quite famous." Galgi touched his chin. "I think he's called Vera Za Ignatifates, right?" When this sentence came out of Galgi's mouth, Maxwell's expression froze. Then, the temperature of the entire space suddenly became hot and cold. Glea and Aurora suddenly tensed up. Galgi and Belle stared in Maxwell's direction. In front of everyone, Maxwell's face contorted, then turned ferocious, and finally became expressionless. He was like a living dead, and he said this without any anger. "Sorry, I have something to do, so I'll take my leave first." Hearing this, Galgi and Belle's eyes glinted with success. Chapter 1540. Above the magma rock, the vampire's castle. When the sky brightened, traces of life began to appear in the ancient castle that was filled with historical aura. The people who had been patrolling the whole night were chatting with the people who came to change shifts. They returned to their bases and began to rest. As the sun gradually rose, there were more and more people on the streets. They were either fully armed, lightly armed, or like ordinary people, they wore casual clothes and didn't even carry a weapon. Everyone was walking on the streets. Around the streets, there were stalls. Everything was sold in the stalls. Some sold weapons and armor. Some sold snacks and food. Some even sold some cheap gifts, which attracted a lot of onlookers. The lively scene made people unable to imagine that this place existed as a combat camp. It was more like an ordinary city. Under such circumstances, early in the morning, Noah went to find Vera and strolled outside. Holding Vera's hand, Noah walked on the streets as if he was really shopping. He pointed at the stalls around him. They can actually set up stalls at this time. The community called 6 Wounds is quite powerful. In the Dragon Horn Vulture Lion Alliance, which was formed by 1 horn, 2 wings, 3 tails, 4 feet, 5 claws, and 6 wounds, not all communities focused on military development. In the South District's Hierarchy Alliance, each community had different positions. Among them, 1 horn and 5 claws were responsible for fighting. 2 wings, 3 tails, and 4 feet were responsible for transportation. 6 Wounds was responsible for the Alliance's agriculture and business development. Business communities like 6 Wounds that focused on business activities were not rare in the Box Court. For example, Thousand Eyes, where White Yiksha was a large business community formed by many communities. Their reputation and power profiles were in the upper, middle, and lower levels of the Box Court. They were far more famous than 6 Wounds. Of course, 6 Wounds was also one of the few well-known business communities in the lower levels of the Box Court. They had branches in almost every area of the lower levels. However, because of this, 6 Wounds seemed to have signs of breaking away from Dragonhorn Vulture Lion. There was no other reason other than the fact that the Dragonhorn Griffin Lion had become the dominant class. After the Dragonhorn Griffin Lion had become the class controller of the Southern District, in order to achieve closer cooperation, the large communities of the Dragonhorn Griffin Lion Alliance decided to unify into a large and all-powerful community, so as to better correspond to the class controller's position. However, to the 6 Wounds, it was undoubtedly a huge blow. If they were to unify into a community, it would mean that they would need to unify under one banner. However, for a business community, changing the flag and name was unimaginable. This was because the brand of the product would change its name, which would cause a certain amount of economic losses. Therefore, 6 Wounds seemed to be thinking of leaving the alliance and becoming independent. This matter, Noah heard about it from Ren. For this reason, Ren seemed to have some ideas. But because of the existence of such a great enemy like humanity's final trial, he couldn't put the cart before the horse. Thus, he didn't mention it and suppressed it in his heart. Noah could vaguely see Ren's plan, but he did not point it out. After all, now was not the time to talk about these things. In short, for a business community to be able to become famous in the lower class, their ability could be imagined. Even in this period of time, they were still able to firmly grasp the opportunity to profit. It was indeed admirable. That area seems to be selling weapons and armors. Are those weapons and armors normal armors or bestowed armors? There are bestowed weapons over there. To be able to sell bestowed weapons at this time, they must not be normal goods. Otherwise, people wouldn't buy them to increase their strength and deal with AZ Dakaha's split body. Oh. There are even snacks and food? If Yao was here, he would definitely happily go and watch, right? There are even elixirs that can increase one's strength? And it's only selling for 10 gold coins? Who would be so stupid to sell it? Seeing that Noah seemed to be very interested in shopping, Vera, who could only go with the flow while being held by Noah, spoke weakly. What are we planning to do? What? Noah replied absent-mindedly. What are we planning to do? Isn't it just shopping? Really? Vera tilted her head. Then why don't you call Black Rabbit and the others? Them? Noah shrugged. They have other things to do. Something else? Vera blinked her eyes in confusion. At this moment, Noah turned his head and looked at Vera with a smile. Next, something big might happen here, so Black Rabbit and the others went to look for Sarah and Sandora. They are preparing to do something big. Something big? Vera was even more confused. Well, if you don't understand, then don't think about it. Noah patted Vera's head. You just need to follow me. Then, no matter what happens next, I will protect you. Hearing this, Vera looked at Noah's extremely carefree smile. Her heartbeat sped up and her pretty face blushed. Noah, on the other hand, didn't know that his words had won the favor of an innocent girl. He continued to hold Vera's hand and walked towards the snack and food stall. Don't think so much. Let's enjoy it while we can. Don't hesitate and enjoy it. After saying that, Noah took out a copper coin from his pocket and flicked it into the hands of a stall owner selling crepes. Boss, give me 2. Okay. The stall owner answered happily and skillfully made 2 crepes in an instant and handed the steaming crepes to Noah. Thank you for your patronage. Noah took it and gave one of them to Vera. Here, this is for you. Vera took it in a daze and looked at the crepe in her hand. For a moment, she didn't move. What's wrong? Noah also took a crepe, took a small bite, and then looked at Vera suspiciously. Don't you like to eat crepes? No, no. Vera shook her head. After hesitating for a while, she said in a mosquito-like voice. It's just that except for Jack and Aisha, no one has treated me so kindly. Really? Noah suddenly looked at Vera strangely. I think there should be many people who want to treat you kindly. Saying such a sentence, Noah's eyes couldn't help but move down. He glanced at Vera's plump upper body that was completely inconsistent with the tender appearance of a 13 or 14-year-old, and his expression became strange. Although, more than 99% of the guys must have bad intentions. Vera was startled once more and was confused once more. Well. Noah chuckled awkwardly and said hurriedly. Okay, hurry up and eat. Although Vera still looked confused, she still nodded, opened her seductive mouth, and took a big bite of the crepe in her hand. The way she ate naturally caused the corners of the little girl's mouth to be stained with cream. Vera didn't notice it at all. She puffed up her cheeks like a cute squirrel, chewing the crepe in her mouth, and her eyes lit up slightly. So sweet. Vera's cute appearance made Noah smile. He squatted down and half-knelt on the ground. He reached out his hand and very intimately wiped the cream from the corner of Vera's mouth. Really, it's all over your face. After wiping the cream from the corner of Vera's mouth with his finger, Noah naturally put his finger that was stained with cream into his mouth. Seeing this scene, Vera's pretty face blushed again. It was also at this moment that the temperature in the air suddenly dropped below 0. An extremely cold storm suddenly descended from the sky. In the trembling sound, it was like a tornado, falling in the direction of Noah. Chapter 1541. Wang. An extremely cold storm containing unimaginably low temperatures descended from the sky, rubbing against the air. As the air trembled, it madly landed on the streets. Boom! Amidst the rumbling, an extremely cold storm exploded, blowing across the street. Kacha kacha kacha. Under the attack of the freezing temperature, the ground slowly froze into ice. Pa, 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 pa. The stalls around the street were instantly shattered under the attack of the cold storm. The fragments froze into ice cubes and were swept into the storm, turning into frozen bullets that shot out in all directions. Ah! The people who were already on the street were all attacked by the extremely cold storm. They cried out in alarm one after another as they were blown away. Only Noah's eyes flashed a second before the extreme cold storm descended from the sky. He hugged Vera, who was at a loss, and disappeared in a flash. Instantly, the streets and buildings within a radius of over 100 meters were all frozen, with the extreme cold storm as the center, turning into a crystalline world of ice. Holding Vera in his arms, Noah dashed out from the edge of this world of ice. He put down the girl in his arms and raised his head. Looking forward, the corner of his mouth curved into a cold arc. Are they here? It wasn't just Noah. Looking at the street that had turned into a world of ice, Vera seemed to know who had the ability to create such a world and spoke with a trembling voice. Maxwell. It was as if he was responding to Vera's call. In front of them, in the middle of the street that had turned into a world of ice, the ground began to shine with a fiery light. Bang! Amidst the sound of an explosion, a pillar of fire blasted the ground and rose from the ground. It soared into the sky and disappeared into the clouds. Within the fire pillar, a figure slowly appeared. He walked in the air as though he was walking on empty ground. In the next second, a young man wearing a red and blue coat walked out of the fire pillar like a clown trying to please the crowd. He floated in the air and was imprinted in the eyes of everyone present. What a beautiful sound. Maxwell lowered his head and looked at Vera with an intoxicated and infatuated expression. His eyes were burning with a crazy passion. I knew that you would know that I'm here, my beloved bride. Being treated by Maxwell's scorching eyes and intoxicated tone, Vera felt goosebumps all over her body and couldn't help but cry out. So disgusting. Hee. Maxwell didn't care about Vera's words at all. Instead, he seemed to be delighted as he said so. You're embarrassed again, my bride. Although this is part of you, you should be used to my love, right? Hearing this, Vera couldn't stop trembling. Disgusting, so disgusting, not to mention Vera, even Noah couldn't stand it. He felt so disgusted that he wanted to vomit. Noah had seen many narcissistic people. But Maxwell's narcissism and delusions to the extreme. Although Luo Hao was also narcissistic, and delusional, at least he didn't give people a disgusting feeling. But Maxwell didn't have the self-awareness of how disgusting his actions were. He still stood there as if he was performing, like a gentleman. One of his hands was clenched into a fist, placed on his left chest, and bowed to Vera. I'm sorry, my bride. Although I knew you were here and wanted to see you earlier, it would be rude if I didn't prepare properly. So, I held myself back. You must have been thinking about me as much as I was thinking about you. Now that I'm here, are you happy? Ugh. Vera was so disgusted that she couldn't speak. She could only tear up and unconsciously lean towards Noah's direction. She reached out and grabbed the corner of Noah's clothes. It was like an insecure young girl subconsciously relying on her sweetheart. The smile on Maxwell's face froze, and the intoxication and infatuation in his eyes slowly disappeared. Then, as if Maxwell finally noticed Noah's existence, he looked at Noah with an emotionless face. That's my bride. Can you please stay away from her? Following Maxwell's words, the surrounding temperature suddenly alternated between hot and cold. It was very strange. As a result, the entire street that had been frozen into ice kept repeating the process of melting, freezing, melting, and freezing in less than a few seconds. It was as if heaven and earth were changing, and it was frightening. If an ordinary person were to stay in such a space of ice and fire, it would not take long for them to die from the sudden rise and fall of their body temperature. Unfortunately, Noah didn't seem to feel anything. He turned his head and said to Vera in a mocking tone. Is that what he said? Should I do it? Vera's head suddenly shook like a rattle drum. She grabbed Noah's clothes tighter and tighter, and even her body leaned against him. Noah patted Vera's head and looked at Maxwell with a faint smile. It seems that Vera wants to be with me more than you. The corner of Maxwell's eyes twitched, and then he returned to his expressionless state. So that's how it is. Maxwell's pupils suddenly dilated as he muttered this sentence. His face was distorted as he roared at Noah. You must have used some despicable means to threaten Vera, right? Bastard. With that, Maxwell raised both of his hands high. A violent hot wind and an extremely cold wind suddenly exploded from Maxwell's raised hands, turning into an ice and fire storm that alternated between hot and cold. It was mixed with red and blue light, surging in all directions. Without any hesitation, Maxwell waved his hands fiercely, and the soaring ice and fire storm immediately surged out. Like a violent storm, it shrouded the direction where Noah was at. "Be careful!" Vera couldn't help but exclaim. However, Noah's expression didn't change as he looked at the ice and fire storm surging towards him. He didn't move at all. In his body, the energy source that was filled with endless energy suddenly turned into a mana source, allowing the mana to flow throughout his body. In the next second, a huge water wave-like golden ripple undulated on the ground in front of Noah. Inside, a shield that was as thick as a city wall and inlaid with flower petals like decorations suddenly rose up, protecting Noah and Vera behind it. Pung! The raging storm of ice and fire landed on the thick shield like a wave crashing into a reef. It exploded with a bang and was forcibly split apart by the shield, turning into two streams of heat and cold that blew past the two sides of the shield. Noah, who was protected behind the shield and wasn't attacked by the ice and fire storm, suddenly raised a foot and kicked the shield. Dong! Amidst a heavy muffled sound, the huge shield that was as thick as a city wall was sent flying by Noah's kick. It was like the toughest wall, splitting apart the ice and fire storm that surged towards Maxwell in front of it. Maxwell's heart tightened when he saw the huge shield splitting the storm of ice and fire as it charged toward him. He finally regained his senses and leaped up without hesitation, avoiding the shield that was charging toward him. However, Maxwell's pair of eyes suddenly shrank to the size of a needle. Because, almost at the same time Maxwell jumped up and avoided the huge shield, behind the shield, a figure also jumped up and appeared in front of Maxwell. Who else could it be other than Noah? Looking at Maxwell's abrupt change of expression, Noah suddenly smiled, but there wasn't a trace of a smile in his eyes, and it was extremely cold. "It's impolite not to reciprocate." After saying that, Noah suddenly turned around and kicked Maxwell's chest fiercely. Pung! The strong and powerful kick brought about a whistling wind, and it kicked Maxwell's chest. Minced meat and bones sputtered like flying pieces of paper. Chapter 1542. Bang! A muffled sound, like a watermelon being smashed, resounded. Amidst the muffled sound, the entire chest of the four-digit demon king named Maxwell burst open by Noah's powerful kick, turning into minced meat and bone fragments that splashed in all directions like water. Just like that, Maxwell's entire chest was blown apart, leaving behind a large, hideous hole. That was undoubtedly a fatal wound. Not to mention humans, except for the Asura gods and Buddhas with extremely tenacious vitality, even demons and ghosts could only die from such injuries if they did not have any special abilities. However, Noah's eyes did not relax at all. Instead, they flashed with an even colder look. With a sidestep, his feet suddenly turned into afterimages, and he continuously kicked in the direction of Maxwell, whose chest had been blown open. Bang, 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 bang. Accompanied by a series of muffled explosions, Maxwell, whose entire chest had been blown open, was hit repeatedly by the raindrops of kicks. Every part of his body was blown up one after another, turning into minced meat and bone fragments that scattered in all directions. Noah, who had directly kicked Maxwell into smithereens, tapped his foot on the void and retreated rapidly. A magic square suddenly flashed in front of him, and an astonishing amount of magical power gathered inside, allowing the light of magical power to illuminate the entire space. Buzz! The next moment, the magic square rotated. Inside, the astonishing magical power gathered into a beam of light that burst out, piercing through the space, and instantly shrouding the surrounding minced meat and bone fragments that scattered in all directions. The minced meat and bone fragments that filled the sky were annihilated into nothingness by the beam of light that contained amazing magical power. Then, the pillar of light that seemed to be able to pierce through the sky rubbed against the air and pierced through the sky without slowing down. It shot out explosively from one end of the castle of vampires and swept towards the horizon. Finally, it disappeared into the distant horizon. The whole process was less than 10 seconds. From the moment Maxwell blasted the ice and fire storm at Noah to the moment Noah smashed Maxwell into pieces without leaving a single trace, the entire process took less than 10 seconds. In 10 seconds, a 4-digit demon king died in the hands of Noah just like that. No. To be more precise, it should be said that they died once. Noah, who had landed steadily on the ground, looked straight ahead, and there was no fluctuation in his dark and deep eyes. It was only at this time that Vera recovered from her daze and hurriedly trotted to Noah's side, habitually grabbing the corner of his clothes. Are you okay? I'm fine. Noah shook his head, his eyes still fixed on the front. But the other side seems to be fine as well. Just as Noah finished speaking, in the space in front of him, a burst of fire and ice suddenly appeared, twisting in the air and converging together, gradually condensing into a human figure. Immediately after, Maxwell, who was completely unharmed, slowly walked out of the flames and snow. He pretended to pat the dust off his coat and said unhappily. As expected, wanting to rely on your own strength to challenge someone who could face 3 digits of humans in the final trial is more or less unwise, isn't it? Although he said this, there was no worry or fear on Maxwell's face. Thus, Noah said with a sneer. You think too highly of yourself, don't you think? Maxwell's hand movements paused slightly. When I fought with Az Dakaha, I used all my skills, and with great difficulty, I beat him to the brink of death. Noah said indifferently. Compared to the strength I used at that time, the strength I use now is not even 1% of that. I couldn't even block this little bit of strength and died once, and you still have the nerve to say that it's only unwise. You should find a place to hide, and train for a few hundred years to measure your own strength. Maxwell's face twitched, and his gaze towards Noah was filled with a shocking murderous intent. What? You want to kill me? Noah endured the shocking murderous intent from Maxwell's body, and curled his lips into a smile. It doesn't matter, today's ending is either you die or I die. You can try to kill me, Maxwell. No. Noah's eyes flashed. I should call you Maxwell's paradox, James Clerk Maxwell's imaginary demon. The murderous intent in Maxwell's eyes faded, and was replaced by a deep shock. James Clerk Maxwell. He was an extremely famous physicist and mathematician in the history of England, the founder of classical electrodynamics, and one of the founders of statistical physics. James Clerk Maxwell's On Electricity and Magnetism was respected as the most important physics classic after Newton's Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy. Therefore, James Clerk Maxwell was generally regarded as one of the most influential physicists in physics. Without his foundation of electromagnetism, there would be no modern electrotechnics, let alone modern civilization. The scientist even realized that there was an energy control mechanism in nature that opposed the increase of entropy, but he couldn't clearly explain this mechanism. He could only humorously assume that it was a kind of demon, that is, a spirit or something like that. This kind of demon was able to follow a certain order and rule, and distribute randomly moving particles into a certain space. In other words, it was a kind of humanoid demon or similar mechanism that could detect and control the movement of a single molecule. This mechanism was conceived by Maxwell in order to illustrate the possibility of violating the second law of thermodynamics. This mechanism was later called Maxwell's demon, or Maxwell's elf. There was no doubt that this kind of existence that was conceived in order to illustrate the possibility of violating the second law of thermodynamics was an existence that was denied by science. Maxwell, on the other hand, was the Maxwell demon that was denied by science. He was a demon that was born from the paradox of hypotheses. This kind of demon, whose existence was denied by science, should have been like a paper tiger, just an illusion that would disappear after being torn up and thrown away. It only needed to use physical attacks to defeat a small number of extremely weak demons, similar to the existence of the lower undead. However, Maxwell was endowed with a powerful spiritual core. This kind of spirit was also an existence that had not yet been recognized by science. The third perpetual motion machine. Noah looked directly at Maxwell. You have the third perpetual motion machine spirit, right? Perpetual motion machine. It was a kind of machine that did not need external input of energy and could constantly move and do external work under the condition of only one heat source. In history, there was a period of time when the invention of this kind of machine was popular, but it was denied one after another. Because, first of all, the machine that did not consume energy and could always do external work violated the law of conservation of energy itself. In the case of no temperature difference, continuously absorbing heat from the sea or air in nature and continuously converting it into mechanical energy, the machine that could move continuously with only one heat source violated the second law of thermodynamics. Therefore, the above two perpetual motion machines were concepts that violated the current objective laws of science and could not be manufactured. The former was collectively known as the first perpetual motion machine. The latter was known as the second perpetual motion machine. As for the third perpetual motion machine, it generally referred to the machine that was always moving. It referred to the essence of the dream of transforming energy into work, consuming energy infinitely to do work, and being able to generate energy out of nothing. Of course, the third perpetual motion machine had not been invented yet. However, Maxwell had the third perpetual motion machine spirit that was completed after 2120. Originally, Maxwell was a kind of demon that was not recognized by the natural world and did not have a body that belonged to him. And with the support of the third perpetual motion machine spirit that could generate energy out of nothing, this paradox demon without a body could be continuously created. Even if it was smashed into pieces, it could still be restored to its original state. This was the origin of Maxwell's immortal body. This was the information that Noah obtained from Galgi and Bell. Maxwell's face suddenly sank and became extremely ugly. Chapter 1543. Seeing Maxwell's ugly expression, Noah's face did not have a trace of joy from exposing the enemy's true colors. Instead, there was a little gloominess on his face. Undoubtedly, he had already understood Maxwell's true colors. However, Noah found that he had no way to use the 10th incarnation of the 10 incarnations, authority, warrior. After understanding the enemy's knowledge, this incarnation could display the power that could even cut off divinity and divinity. If he could use it, it would not be a problem at all to nullify Maxwell's immortal body. However, now, this incarnation could not be used. What did this mean? It meant that the knowledge Noah had now was either wrong or not enough. If it was the former, then Noah needed to consider whether Galgi was deceiving him and deliberately giving him false information, or even he was deceived by Maxwell's false information. If it was the latter, then Maxwell was very likely to be hiding some trump cards. Looking at Maxwell's ugly expression, it was very likely the latter. There was another reason for this inference. It's about time you showed your true abilities, right? Noah looked at Maxwell coldly. So far, I've encountered quite a few powerful opponents. Among them, there's no lack of 4-digit or even 3-digit opponents. Although your strength isn't weak, your body is too fragile. As a 4-digit demon king, it's a little degrading. Wasn't it? From the beginning, Noah did not use any power, nor did he use any powerful noble artifacts. He only used a shield, performed a melee attack, and used the magic cannon once. Maxwell died once in Noah's hands. As a demon king with a 4-digit number, it was indeed a bit of a loss of face. How could the existence that was sent by the Demon King Alliance to monitor Galgi and the others only have this little ability? If Maxwell only relied on teleportation and immortal body to enter the 4-digit number, then the 4-digit number was too cheap. Or, is that really all you have? Noah said sarcastically. Then, maybe I should re-examine whether it is possible to let a fake person enter the 4-digit number class. Noah's words made Maxwell's chest rise and fall slightly, and even his pair of eyes became a little red. It was a sign of extreme anger. Seeing this scene, Vera, who had been tugging at Noah's clothes, could not help but cast a look of admiration at Noah. As a victim who had been followed for 100 years, Vera clearly knew how annoying this demon king Maxwell was. Perhaps Maxwell's strength was not very outstanding among the 4-digit number classes, but no matter how bad it was, he was still a 4-digit number class. Relying on teleportation and immortal body, he was almost invincible, and even 4-digit number classes could not do anything to him. Now, Noah's few words, in addition to the previous rounds of fierce attacks, had forced Maxwell to this point. Vera felt that asking Noah for help in dealing with Maxwell was the best choice she had ever made in her life. Under such circumstances, Maxwell's chest rose and fell slightly for a while, but after a while, he regained his calmness. However, the Demon King, who was ranked in the top 4, looked at Noah as if he was looking at a dead person. There was not the slightest emotion in his eyes. Immediately after, Maxwell said this with an expressionless face. "You asked for it." After saying that, Maxwell suddenly spread out his hands. A vortex of flames erupted from one hand, and an extremely cold storm rose from the other. It was as if he had caught a red and blue vortex, causing the vortex of flames and the extremely cold storm to sweep across the space. Wang! The space that was engulfed by extreme heat and extreme cold suddenly trembled and began to slowly distort. As a hypothetical demon born from thermodynamics, Maxwell could use the power of fire and ice as he wished. However, the true nature of this power was not to control temperature, but to control the energy produced from the difference in temperature. Compressing the energy produced from the difference in temperature was the power of Maxwell, the demon. Now, Maxwell was controlling this energy, cutting through the realm of cold and warmth, causing the entire space to distort. From the distorted space, pure white aberrations were transferred over from all corners of the ground. They were the three-headed demonic dragon's clones. Roar, 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 roar. The two-headed demonic dragons let out roars that shook the air, their blood-red eyes gazing in Noah's direction. Seeing the two-headed demonic dragons being transferred over, Vera couldn't help but cover her small mouth. Only Noah narrowed his eyes. "So you really transported AZ Dakaha's clones to the city?" "It can't be helped. Just like what you said, I'm not a powerful demon king. In order to make up for my shortcomings, I developed the ability to use space to increase my battle strength, just like a summoner's battle style." Maxwell smiled emotionlessly. The Stratum overlords here seem to be hunting for clones. Unfortunately, before that, I've already gathered enough battle strength. I'm going to use this two-headed demonic dragon army to tear you to pieces, then destroy the city completely. Following Maxwell's words, the two-headed demonic dragons roared at the sky, their eyes emitting a murderous glint. However, in the face of this scene, Noah suddenly smiled. "In other words, the clones here are almost all of the clones on the ground, right?" Seeing Noah's joy instead of fear, even Maxwell couldn't help but be stunned. Then, Noah said sarcastically, "Thank you for giving us a chance to annihilate all of the clones in one go." As soon as his voice fell, "Oh!" a deafening roar suddenly resounded throughout the sky above the city. As the shouts rang out, many figures began to surge out from all directions of the city. There were even many black figures that flew over in midair, charging toward this space. Wah! Maxwell was shocked. At this moment, Sarah and Shadora, who were riding on a fire dragon and leading a large army, gave their orders. "Now is the time. Everyone, attack!" One by one, the combat members of the community charged forward, bringing with them great morale as they charged toward the twin-headed dragon army with bloodshot eyes. Seeing this, Maxwell finally understood. Noah had long anticipated that he would transfer all three of the three-headed dragon's body parts here, and had long since made preparations. "Mr. Noah." Black Rabbit leaped down from the sky. He gripped a Vajra scepter that was flashing with lightning as he stared in Maxwell's direction. "Black Rabbit is here to help you." It wasn't just Black Rabbit. Letitia, Pest, Fei Niao, Yao, Jack, and the others, including Noah's subordinates, Letitia, Pest, Flying Bird, Yao, Aisha, Jack, and the others, all appeared at the scene and began to gather around Noah and Vera. "How is it, Maxwell? Demon King Maxwell?" Noah looked at Maxwell with a faint smile. "Do you like this surprise? Did you plan this from the start?" Maxwell was furious. "Is that why you used Vera to lure me out?" "You've already said it." "You think too highly of yourself," Noah said mockingly. I don't need to go to this extent to deal with you." After saying this, Noah turned to his companions and said, "Go and deal with the twin-headed dragons. You guys go deal with Dakaha's split body. I'll be fine here." Black Rabbit, Flying Bird, Yao, Letitia, Pest and the others nodded without any hesitation. They turned around and charged into the battlefield, beginning their slaughter. "Vera," Noah also said to Vera beside him. "You go as well." "Oh," Vera nodded obediently. However, her obedient appearance stimulated Maxwell. "Other than me, no one else can order Vera around." Amidst his furious roar, Maxwell suddenly disappeared from where he stood. With a spatial jump, he appeared before Noah and pounced at Noah with bloodshot eyes. Seeing Maxwell appear before him, the mockery in Noah's eyes grew even stronger. Divine power surged out from his body. Chapter 1544. Bang! The raging flame vortex and the icy cold storm exploded on the ground at the same time, turning into an impact wave of alternating hot and cold. Along with the surging airflow of red and blue, it spread wildly to the surroundings. Faced with such a berserk power, not to mention the members of the various communities, even the three-headed dragon's army of clones were unwilling to get close to it. All of them shouted and roared as they fled, distancing themselves from the area and creating a large empty space for the three-headed dragon to fight. As a result, the raging flames and ice alternately burned the surrounding streets and buildings, and then froze them into ice. In an instant, a large area of the surrounding open space was turned into a barren land. Although that power was not terrifying, it was still quite amazing. Although Maxwell claimed that he was not a demon king with great power, that was only relative. No matter what, Maxwell was a four-digit existence. The all-out attack of a four-digit demon king, even if it was not the type that specialized in strength, was still quite terrifying for those below the four-digit level. If Maxwell was willing, it would not be difficult to destroy a city in an instant with this move alone. However, for Noah, such a simple attack of flames and ice really did not pose much of a threat. Therefore, in the face of the incoming flame vortex and icy cold storm, Noah only raised one hand, clenched it into a fist, and instantly blasted it out. Dong! The fist that even shook the atmosphere set off a violent impact wave, turning into an invisible impact wave that collided head-on with the incoming flame vortex and icy cold storm, and forcibly dispersed them. However, at this moment, Maxwell cut through the realm of cold and heat, causing the space to distort. With a space jump, he instantly flashed behind Noah. "Die for me." In the cold and crazy voice, Maxwell rolled up flames in one hand and ice in the other. Both of his hands were thrown out, aiming at Noah's back, and heavily blasted it. In the past, Maxwell had used this move time and time again. Because, with the ability to teleport, almost no one could keep up with Maxwell's rhythm. If it were another person, at this moment, even if they reacted, they would not be able to avoid Maxwell's attack. Unfortunately, Maxwell had picked the wrong opponent. Teleportation was indeed very powerful. However, with his superb sensing ability, Noah was able to detect the location of Maxwell's appearance when he was in Maxwell's slicing realm and distorting space, and react in time. After all, this move of teleportation was actually a space jump. The moment he jumped out of the space itself would definitely fluctuate a little. Noah only needed to use his sensing ability to detect the space fluctuation after Maxwell performed the space jump. Then, he would know the location of Maxwell's teleportation. Therefore, before the raging flames and ice and snow came crashing down, Noah spun around and kicked out. Dong! It was an ordinary kick, but it caused the raging flames and ice to explode, creating a burst of fire and cold wind. It was like an explosion, shaking in all directions. Bang! In the next second, a heavy muffled sound rang out from the center of the trembling flames and cold wind. Goo-woo! Maxwell's muffled groan also rang out amidst the flames and snow. Immediately after, his entire body flew out and smashed into the ground like an arrow that had been shot from a bow. Damn it! Maxwell gritted his teeth and got up. His body was covered in flames and ice and snow again. However, before Maxwell could attack again, waves of golden ripples suddenly flashed out from the space around him. In a moment, Maxwell was surrounded. Inside, various weapons such as sabers, swords, spears, and halberds suddenly popped out like loaded bullets, aiming in Maxwell's direction. Oh no! Maxwell was shocked. Without any hesitation, he performed a space jump and disappeared from where he was. Almost at the same time, various weapons such as sabers, swords, spears, and halberds that popped out from the golden ripples suddenly turned into beams of light and landed on Maxwell's original position. Rumble. The powerful treasures either collided with each other or exploded the ground, stirring up a surging wave of fire that blew to the surroundings. Maxwell, who used the space jump ability to escape, did not have time to breathe a sigh of relief. A faint voice sounded behind him. "You, where are you looking?" The pores on Maxwell's body instantly widened. Clang! A streak of sword light flashed behind Maxwell. With a clear sword hum, it flashed through space and slashed in Maxwell's direction. Poochie! This time, Maxwell did not use the space jump in time. The sword light cut through the space and cut through his waist. In the tearing sound, his body was cut in half. However, one of the two halves of the body suddenly turned into flames and the other into ice and snow. Just like that, they disappeared on the spot and reappeared in another space. Immediately, the flames and ice gathered together and turned into a human figure. It was Maxwell's appearance again. Seeing this, Noah, who was holding a luxurious knight's sword, frowned slightly. He felt that this was a bit tricky. Sure enough, ordinary means can't kill him. Maxwell seemed to have thought of this as well. He regained his composure and sneered at Noah. "Yes, you're very strong, but you can't kill me." Saying this, Maxwell raised his hand, and once again, flames and ice and snow rolled up in his hand. Also, my battle strength is not only limited to the human body in the final trial. I still have my own collection. The vortex of flames and ice suddenly danced in the space. Among them, one figure after another began to slowly appear and walk out. They were actually dolls in the shape of young girls. The dolls had transparent pale eyes and platinum hair. They neatly walked out of the flames and ice. They even moved nimbly, unlike dolls. They pulled up the corners of their skirts and bowed to Noah. There was not a trace of life in the eyes of those dolls. However, on their skin, there was a kind of red color that only healthy humans had. These dolls are the results of the third perpetual motion machine's experiments. Maxwell looked as if he was really showing off his own collection. He opened his hand and introduced them to Noah. Unfortunately, they're only test products. But for me, they're still useful. Have a good dance with them. The young girl dolls suddenly raised their heads. Sharp blades suddenly popped out of their bodies. With light steps, they rushed toward Noah. The number of marionettes was even larger than the three-headed dragon's army. They formed an army and rushed toward Noah like a swarm of locusts. Seeing this scene, Noah's frown deepened. He coldly snorted and threw away the weapon in his hand, allowing a wave-like golden ripple to swallow it. Since they're just dolls, there's no need to be merciful. Wave-like golden ripples flashed in the space behind Noah. Then, a variety of weapons, such as swords, spears, halberds, and so on, were suspended. They turned into streams of light and covered the army of dolls that was charging toward them like a storm. Bang! There was a muffled explosion. A spear that turned into a beam of light directly shot a doll, causing the doll's pieces to scatter into the sky. Bang, 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 bang. Muffled explosions were heard one after another, causing the puppets that were charging forward to explode one by one from the relic after another, causing the puppets to shatter into pieces and fall all over the ground. Not only that. The rain of relics flashed through the air without slowing down. Maxwell's expression changed abruptly as it shot towards him. At the critical moment, Maxwell decisively used a space jump and disappeared on the spot. Bang! One by one, the weapons exploded on the ground, causing scorching flames to burst and spread in all directions. Seeing that Maxwell had turned the situation around again, Noah could not help but be speechless. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.